I've heard that.
Yeah,
I've heard that.
Nobody told me these things.
It now says the broadcast is live on ESPN's Upstate's Facebook page and everywhere.
That is correct. It is, because there's a big red button that says go live, and if you push that, that's what happens. So we are off to a incredible start, just an absolutely incredible start to the show. But the good news is, now that we are live, we got a hell of a show lined up for you today. Ton of stuff to get into. Taylor Moton has been tagged with a franchise tag for the Carolina Panthers, and I think it's an excellent move. In fact, I think it was the only move that was appropriate for Carolina with that tag. We're going to talk about that coming up in a little while. We are not out of the woods with COVID in sports just yet. A major college football program has just paused their spring football activities in entirety because of a breakout within their school. I'll tell you what school that is and what's going on that has created that. That's coming up in just a little while. Mel Kiper Jr. has put out his thoughts on Trevor Lawrence. What does he think TL16 is going to be in the NFL? We'll give you Mel Kiper's thoughts, see if we agree or disagree in just a little while. The CBS Sports mock draft is out. They have the Panthers still drafting at number 8. But whom do they select, we ask? Plus, Dak Prescott signs his contract with the Dallas Cowboys last night. Did they make the right decision? We're going to talk about that coming up in just a few brief minutes as well. 1.5 million things that we need to get to on the show today, and we will get to all of them. What the heck? Let's start getting to them right now. Let's start the show by doing that thing that we do to start every show.
Let's do lunch.
This is a very nutritious lunch. All the food groups are represented.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
It's time for the lunch breakdown, the 3 things that you have to know before you go talk sports with your friends, family, coworkers, or the wall, whoever you spend your lunch break with. The 3 things that will be discussed around the water cooler while you are sipping on that midday Red Bull, trying to make it through the rest of the day. That's what we're here for, ladies and gentlemen, to give you that little bit of boost, talk a little sports, have a little fun, to get you through the second half of the day. We will go from 3 to 1 as opposed to how I ordinarily wrap it up here today, because number 1 is going to be a story we're going to put a lot of weight into today, and unfortunately is a relatively serious story. So we start with item number 3 on the lunch breakdown today. And for that, we go to the NFL, the National Football League, as the great Chris Berman would say. We are watching quarterback stories continue to develop around the National Football League. Last night, Dak Prescott signed his contract. Just a few days before that, Ben Roethlisberger signed his. We have seen the trade of Matt Stafford and Jared Goff, but there is still 2 major pieces that are out there that will have a huge impact on where the NFL quarterback landscape ends up down the line. The first one, obviously, is the one that everyone in this area is keeping very close tabs on, and that would be the ultimate landing spot of one former Clemson Tiger, Deshaun Watson. But the other QB that has been discussed as potentially landing elsewhere would be Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson. About a week and a half ago, we learned through his agent that Russell Wilson is not seeking a trade, but would accept a trade to 4 teams. One of those teams is now off the board. That, of course, will be the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott gets that 4-year, $160+ million contract last night. So Dallas is now set at the QB spot, which leaves the Raiders, the Bears, and the Saints as the 3 organizations Russell Wilson has said he would accept a trade to. Well, most people, myself included, have gone on and said, hey, look, Russell Wilson, I don't think is leaving Seattle. I think it's much ado about nothing. I think that's probably his agent propping up to create a little leverage for Russ while he tries to cook up a new brand. Stop it, Russell. Nobody likes it. Anyway, I didn't think he was going anywhere. But Michael Silver of the NFL Network says that where there's smoke, there may very well be fire. Here's what Michael Silver of the NFL Network had to say when he was asked about the possibility of Russell Wilson cooking elsewhere in the league.
There is smoke and there is fire. We don't know what the outcome's going to be, but there absolutely are trade talks involving the Seahawks and other teams in relation to Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson, because of his no trade clause, can somewhat control this process and has, through his agent, stated which 4 teams at this point he would accept a trade to. Of those 4, I believe some are more serious than others. You heard earlier the Cowboys honing in on Dak Prescott, but you've got the Saints and the Bears, possibly the Raiders getting involved here. And then it's also possible that he would open up that list because there are other quarterback needy teams who certainly would step up big, I believe, if Russell Wilson were in play.
There obviously are. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. The Bears would be very interested. I think the Saints, if you have been following their offseason, have been working diligently in order to create cap space. Would they be able to create enough for a Russell Wilson-sized contract? I don't know, but they're certainly making moves as if it's a possibility. Michael Silver says those trade talks are happening. It does not mean there's a guarantee. And in fact, he would go on to say that if it does happen, it may not be this year. Russell may still play this year in Seattle and then get traded down the road, and that he may even open up his trade exempt list. Remember, he's got that no trade clause. He basically controls the momentum here, but he might even open up that list. Now, that being said, Michael Silver says that Russell Wilson talking, the Seahawks talking, does not mean that a trade is a guarantee.
Does that mean it's going to happen? I wouldn't say that. I think it's something that theoretically could be patched up. But remember, this isn't just the Seahawks saying, hey, we want to see what's out there. You have a player who is clearly very, very unhappy. And I think people are naive who would look at a situation where a player's agent publicly says, well, we're not saying we want to get traded, but these 4 teams are the ones if we get traded. If you think that that is normal for a player who wants to stay with his current team to put out publicly, you are vastly misreading the situation. Doesn't mean Russell Wilson couldn't have a change of heart, but right now it is absolutely frosty, and this is a fluid situation. And I think we'll have a lot more resolution, by next week.
It's, and I quote Lonzo, frosty.
Hey, man, it's like it's absolutely frosty, you know?
Stay frosty, bro. Stay frosty.
Bro.
We'll circle back around to that, but Michael Silver says those talks are happening. Item number 2 on the lunch breakdown, the 3 things you have to know before you go have lunch with the sports fans in your office. We now move back to the National Football League. CBS Sports has put out their most recent mock draft, and we are following these mock drafts as they come out. Why? Because, well, you're getting a little inside information. You're getting a little analysis. It's a nice little recipe to try to keep an eye on what is happening. Trevor Lawrence overall number 1 to the Jacksonville Jaguars from CBS Sports. No real shock there. They have, compared to the Pro Football Focus draft we told you about yesterday, that had Zach Wilson falling all the way down to number 8 for the Carolina Panthers. They have Zach Wilson off the board at numero 2 to the New York Football Jets. Jamar Chase matches up to the Dolphins from the PFF draft, as does Kyle Pitts, the tight end, to the Falcons. Penei Sewell to the Bengals at number 5. And number 6, the Philadelphia Eagles. Here's part of the reason that I bring this up. So we have now seen not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 insider mock drafts over the past 4 days that we've done this show that have had the Philadelphia Eagles selecting a quarterback in the first round. They have the Eagles going Justin Fields with round 1, pick number 6 to come in and challenge Jalen Hurts for their spot. I still don't see it. I don't think Philly throws away a pick there by bringing in another quarterback. And what happens if he does compete and you tick off Jalen Hurts and he wants out and or Justin Fields doesn't work out? I don't love the pick there. The reason it's interesting is not because I care what happens with the Philadelphia Eagles. They're one of the franchises in the NFL I hate the most. What's interesting is that you wonder what this does to Carolina looking for a quarterback at number 8. According to this draft, they have Mac Jones, the guy who, remember, at the Senior Bowl, absolutely hooked up and connected with Matt Rule in a very close way compared to most of the players that Rule's staff was working with. They had him starring down at Senior Bowl week, working closely with the Carolina Panthers. Jones isn't the elite level athlete of Lawrence or Wilson, but he does make plays, and there's a good argument that he was better at Alabama than his predecessor, Tua Tagovailoa. Mac Jones at number 8 for the Carolina Panthers. Lonzo, that's the next insider pick that has Carolina taking a quarterback, and it is now the 3rd quarterback in as many days that we have seen connected. I think the pretty clear consensus here is that the Panthers are going QB, and it's just a matter of what the teams ahead of them do that determines which one it ultimately is.
You know, out of all the mock drafts that we've heard, this one makes the most sense because of the connection with Matt Rule and Mac Jones. He's already coached them. Now he knows the pros and cons of the player. And, you know, that helps. It's one thing to scout. It's another thing to be coaching for the limited amount that they get to do during something like this. But still, you get to have interaction with the player, find out what he's really like in and outside of the huddle. And I think this one makes the most sense. And if they could stay at 8 and get him, I'm all for it.
We're going to talk about that because I don't disagree at all. But I want to get to item number 3 on our lunch breakdown today. This story has been developing over the past couple of weeks, and yesterday it came to a head. Former LSU head football coach Les Miles is out at Kansas days after Kansas placed him on administrative leave due to a report released that showed a, quote, pattern of inappropriate behavior, end quote, with female students at LSU. Kansas Athletic Director Jeff Long announced that the school and Miles have, quote, mutually agreed to part ways, end quote, in a statement that was released last night, adding that the terms of the agreement will be released in the coming days. Miles was in the 2nd season, going into his 3rd of a 5-year contract worth about $2.75 million per year that expired after the 2023 season. In the contract, Kansas was allowed to fire Miles for, quote, just cause, end quote, and not pay out any remaining salary for, quote, discreditable conduct that is inconsistent with the professional standards of a head coach of a collegiate football team. According to Long in the statement, quote, I am extremely disappointed for our university fans and everyone involved with our football program. There is a lot of young talent on this football team, and I have no doubt we will identify the right individual to lead the program. We will begin the search for a new head coach immediately with an outside firm to assist the process. We need to win football games, and that is exactly what we're going to do. The report that ultimately ended up with Les Miles losing his job came from the law firm Hush Blackwell. They were commissioned by LSU, then athletic director Joe Oliva, who then would go on to recommend firing Miles in 2013 because of allegations of sexual harassment. The probe launched by Hush Blackwell was a month-long probe that prompted multiple staffing and policy changes at LSU. Interim President Tom Galligan announced last Friday morning that the university is suspending without pay Executive Deputy Athletic Director Virgil Osbury and Senior Associate Athletic Director Miriam Seeger based on the findings. The review disclosed that Miles had been investigated by the LSU-hired Taylor Porter law firm in 2013, as recent news reports revealed. The firm turned up emails that showed Oliva, the athletic department's highest-ranking official, felt Miles should have been fired based upon that investigation. Miles had been accused of kissing a female student twice, unwanted touching, telling her he was attracted to her, and suggesting that they go to a hotel or to his condominium together. Miles has repeatedly denied kissing the student or any other inappropriate behavior. Some of the other allegations in the Taylor Porter investigation remain secret. They are completely redacted. Several LSU athletic department employees also told Taylor Porter that Miles insisted that LSU hire, quote, attractive, blonde, fit, end quote, female students to work in recruiting. Miles was eventually forbidden from having one-on-one meetings or interactions with student employees. Oliva's recommendation to fire Miles, who was riding high at the time and had just received a new 6-year contract, landed flat. The coach was terminated early in the 2016 season, not for misconduct, but for disappointing results on the field. In 2013, his supervisors directed him to stop texting, calling, and messaging student employees. LSU also ordered Les Miles to stop hiring female students to babysit his children and to stop being alone with them. He was also made to attend 8 one-hour sessions that he had to pay for and attend with an attorney. Oliva felt there should have been greater consequences. There were not, and Oliva was fired by LSU in 2019. But before he left, back in 2013, Oliva wrote in an email to former LSU Chancellor William Jenkins, quote, I think his continued employment needs to be seriously considered. When reviewing the use of a secret personal phone, the text messages, the fact that I had already advised him against such behavior, the evening meeting off campus, etc., it gives me great concern for the future. Hush Blackwell investigators were unable to locate a response to that email. Oliva has not returned messages involved with the probe. Oliva also sent an email to former LSU president F. King Alexander on June 21st, 2013, in which he said he believed people are, quote, innocent until proven guilty, end quote, but that, quote, in this case, I believe Les Miles is guilty of insubordination, inappropriate behavior, putting the university athletic department and football program at risk. Oliva said regarding the firing of Miles, quote, I think we have cause. I specifically told him not to text, call, or be alone with any student workers, and he obviously did not listen. I know there are many possible outcomes and much risk either way, but I believe it is in the best interest in the long run to make a break, end quote. Hush Blackwell investigators were also unable to find a response to that email as well. So a very disconcerting story coming out of LSU, coming out of Kansas. It is at this point that you have to wonder what happened at Kansas. Did they not investigate any of this? Did they not know about any of this? If that is the case, why would LSU go so far to cover up the misdeeds of a coach that an AD who was still active at the time decided should have been fired? And more importantly, why did the university not listen to Joe Oliva when this was going down? It is a wild story that continues to shake up, and I want to talk about that later on in the show as well. So all of that and more coming up over the next 2 hours and 48 minutes. My name is Rob Brown. Lonzo back at the controls, pushing the button, switching the switches. Quick break. We are back after this on the Rob Brown Show. Rob, Lonzo, and you. This is ESPN Upstate.
QC Connects.
Yep.
You're listening to the Rob Brown Show.
Let the game come to you. Listen no matter where you
And we are back. Let's see what's over there. Keegan says the LSU situation sounds like when someone mutually decided to break up. I don't think it was. Oliva wanted Les Miles out 3 years before he got let go. And I mean, maybe. Here's the one situation, Keegan, that you may very well have a point. The situation where you might have a point, I think, would be a situation in which LSU decided that Les Miles had continued to act inappropriately and that he needed to be let go. But because of the fact that they had allowed him to keep that job and allowed him to continue acting inappropriately under their banner, said, all right, we don't want to let him go for acting inappropriately. We don't want to let him go in a way that says, well, wait a minute. You guys let him go for acting that way, but you continued to let him act that way for the better part of 3 years. Why? And so they decided to go ahead and use the fact that LSU had not been in the playoff scene for a couple of years, the BCS scene for a couple of years, and label it as a lack of production. If that's the case, Keegan, then yeah, that's there's a good chance that is exactly what ended up happening. But again, the fact that it went that long, I got to tell you, man, LSU has been an absolute dumpster fire the last couple of years between everything that's been going on there, man. They're going to need to clean house soon. They are dangerously close to hitting Baylor territories of needing to just have the AD, the whole department wiped out.
$39. 30 seconds.
Brian Lonzo. Brian has suggested that I put my name in for the head coaching position at Kansas. Probably couldn't be worse than some of the people that are interviewing.
Yeah, I saw that. I have no idea who that other guy is.
Exergen.com, where accuracy matters.
Hey, Rob can read. So he says. Email Rob Brown at ESPNUpstate.com and we'll put him to the test. This is the Rob Brown Show. Local sports talk on ESPN Upstate.
I tell you something disconcerting about not being able to hear the music, but watching Lonzo just absolutely shred the air guitar to I have no idea what song is playing. Let me guess. Hang on. Let me guess. You're going full AC/DC on that one, obviously, Lonzo.
No, we're not, but that's okay. This is a fun game, though. Eventually, maybe you'll figure it out. But no, it was actually some Weezer.
Okay.
Don't normally jam to Weezer, but you know.
Not mad about it. Not mad about it. The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It's ESPN Upstate. Join our stream. We're streaming live every day at Facebook.com/ESPN Upstate, Twitter.com/The Rob Brown Show. And on YouTube, search The Rob Brown Show on YouTube. We stream every single day. You can watch Zoe and I do the show. You can interact with us. We have conversations off the air, including this one. Our buddy Keegan in that Rob Brown Nation P1 group says it sounds like when someone mutually breaks up. Said it sounds like someone mutually decided to break up. And there may be some element of truth to that. But the way this Les Miles situation seems to play out to me is this, Lonzo. And again, just based on what we know, I read a little bit of the report last night. I've been listening to a lot of folks out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I've obviously got a lot of being from Louisiana originally. I've got a lot of friends and family in Louisiana. I got a lot of friends and family that went to LSU. So I'm closer to the LSU program than I am a lot of other programs. Here's what I'll say. It feels like to me, and this is a healthy mix of both keeping a very close eye on what happened, and on top of that, speculation based on what we know and what we don't know. The impression that I'm getting here about what may have happened, Lonzo, is this. Joe Alleva wanted to fire Les Miles in 2013. That recommendation fell on deaf ears. Apparently, according to one of the law firms, they were unable to find any responses to those emails, and they did a pretty healthy job of finding a lot of other emails that played into the situation. So, Joe Alleva decides we should probably let go of Les Miles. The guy's been told, don't spend time alone with student workers. He continues to do that. Don't hire student workers to come babysit you. He continues to do that. Don't make untoward advances. In fact, don't even communicate with student workers within the program. He continued to do that. So Alleva says the guy is an insubordinate. He needs to be let go, and we need to move on. That recommendation falls ultimately on deaf ears. So 3 years down the road, Les Miles is still continuing to act way inappropriately. All right? And so finally, this is what I speculate happened. And I think Keegan hit on this. What I speculate probably happened, at least in my opinion, is that Les Miles continued to go down this road. And as Keegan has just pointed out, welcome to the age of social media. You cannot keep anything under wraps anymore. All right? It's an open book. It just is. Whether you like it or not.
They did. They did keep it under wraps for a long time.
You're right, for about 6 years.
Which is hard to believe in this day and age, especially when people come forward when this sort of thing happens. The fact that they were able to keep all parties quiet for this long makes you speculate that there is some money involved to keep people quiet.
And there might be. But I guess, so let's put it this way then, Lonzo, because you're right. You're right. Les Miles got fired 5 years ago, and it's been under wraps until 3 weeks ago. So I guess the more accurate way to put it would be in major athletics at the professional level or at the D1 collegiate level, these things will come out at some point. All it takes is one person to decide to bring it forward and one shred of evidence to launch an investigation. And if you do that, now LSU has to not only answer for keeping Les Miles on board for 3 years after the athletic director said, this guy's acting inappropriately, he's a subordinate, he is harassing people within the staff, etc. Keeping him on board for 3 more years, then firing him solely for lack of production on the football field, which even then, I remember when Les Miles was fired, a lot of LSU fans were going, wait. We're not that far removed from a national championship. We're not that far removed from being a BCS player. We're not that far removed from the top of the mountain. Why are we firing this guy? And it gives off the image that he was fired, to me, maybe because of the below deck activities that are coming out in this report. It is an ugly situation, and I got to tell you, LSU, to me, is kind of at a point now where you may have to blow up the athletic department because you are dangerously close to treading into Baylor territory. You know, where we've been talking about Baylor the past couple of years, where they got football players who are arrested, convicted of rape in other schools, and then they're just allowed to show up. And then they're harassing women on the new campus, and that's being shoved under wraps. I've said for a number of years now, Baylor just needs to have the whole athletic department wiped. Just, you don't even get an athletic department anymore. Shut you down for a decade, then you can try to bring it back, right? LSU is dangerously close to that territory for me right now with these reports coming out with evidence, right? This is not, Les is speculated to have done this. This is cancel culture. No, they're bringing the receipts, son. They're bringing the receipts. They're bringing the emails. They're bringing all this around to him to put it on the table and say, we know what happened. The athletic director brought firing him as a real possibility to the table. And as far as I'm concerned, everybody, including Joe Alleva, including the athletic director, yes, it's great that he said we should fire him. But then he didn't act. Joe Oliva could have pushed more buttons. He could have pulled more levers. He could have switched more switches, and he could have blown this up to an issue where that, now, would it have cost him his job? Maybe. But if it cost him his job, he's going to be just fine. He's going to be set. And tell me there aren't some other D1 schools that wouldn't have hired an athletic director that was fresh off of a national championship in the recent past, that had made some great hires in other programs, and had the courage to come forward and go, yeah, it might cost me my job, but this football coach is getting away with a lot of stuff he should not be getting away with. All right? We haven't even gotten into the aspect of the fact how incredibly gross it is that a 55-plus-year-old college football coach is making untoward advances against 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old college women. It's gross. It's unacceptable. It's absolutely a fireable offense, without a question. But this whole thing is ugly for LSU. And, Lonzo, I don't think, I saw somebody earlier on Twitter, oh, here we go, cancel culture strikes again. I don't think it's cancel culture. They brought the receipts that if nothing else, Les Miles got told by his boss, stop doing these things, and then he kept doing those things. That's not being canceled, Lonzo. That's getting your ass fired for insubordinates.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, this should have been done a long time ago. So what made them just decide to do it now? And there's a God complex in just about every profession. There are people who believe that they're above it all, and once you get away with something, well, I got away with that, I'm just going to keep going. What are they going to do to me? And I would have thought that he wasn't one of those guys, and you never know who is. Some, it's obvious. There are some people you're like, yeah, that guy he thinks he's everything and can get away with everything. But I wouldn't have thought Les Miles was that guy. But once you get away with it once and basically get a slap on the hand, then what you're saying as an administration is go ahead. That's what I get out of it. If you're not really seeing any repercussions for bad behavior like that and you allow it to go on, you're definitely just as responsible as anybody else. And it stinks for the coaching staff that's there now if they had nothing to do with any of this, it being so long ago. And it's going to come back to bite them too because the administration didn't take care of it when it was going on. Yeah,
I agree with you, which is why I said LSU is dangerously close to just needing the athletic department to be nuked, right? The thing about this is, before these reports started coming out, when Les Miles was in his prime down at LSU, I didn't see this being a Les Miles thing either, right? Les Miles was a guy that was loved by the LSU community. He was loved by his players and former players. When LSU let Les Miles go, I was on the air down in Destin, and I remember having LSU fans coming out of the woodworks to talk about how Les was a great guy and a great coach and a character guy, and he was this, that, and the other. And there is a part of me that wonders if LSU didn't hide behind that image a little bit. They didn't look, okay, all right, we got all this, and we know that Les has been acting inappropriately, but it's mostly reports and speculation. And the whole college football community thinks Les is this grass-eating, too small hat-wearing, fun-loving guy, and kind of hid behind that. They use Les as a human shield against Les Miles. But the fact that we are now at a point where LSU is getting dragged with Les Miles, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing that LSU is getting dragged, because I don't want other universities to be able to get away with this. It's a good thing LSU's getting dragged. They deserve to be dragged. And I'll go ahead and tell you this. If I am the Kansas Jayhawks, I am now asking the question, why did Kansas not do enough due diligence to know that this was coming? Why did Now, if they really dug in and did their due diligence and they talked to people and none of this came to light, it is what it is. But I got a hard time believing, with as many people have come and gone from the LSU athletic department from 2016 to 2019, 18, whenever Les Miles got picked up, that there was no way to know this was going on. I got a problem with that. I really do. I'll take a quick break. Get back on the clock. My name's Rob Brown. Zoe's at the controls. What's your thoughts on all this? How do you feel? What do you think's coming out of this? And what will come out of this? Should LSU have to face more consequences down the road? We'll keep talking about that later in the show. The Rob Brown Show rolls on. It's ESPN Upstate.
You're listening to the Rob Brown Show. Listen on your Amazon or Google smart speaker. Just say, play ESPN Upstate.
What is up, everybody on the stream? Great to have you guys. Appreciate you hanging out, tuning in with us. I gotta, if you've heard the barking, come here. Come here. Come here. Come here, Dakota. This is my dog. Come here. Come on. This is Dakota. She's my best old girl. She's, how old are you now? 14? 15? Old as dirt? Huh? That's this is who you're hearing barking every single day while I'm here in Florida doing the show. She's the best, though. Huh? There you go, girl. Good girl. I'd apologize about the barking, but she's my old dog and can do whatever the hell she wants. See, got a couple of comments that came in. Brian said, could it be a cover-up at LSU? Yes. Yeah, that's kind of the direction I was going there, Brian. I absolutely have to ask the question here. Did LSU try to cover up what was happening for the sake of their own image? And I think the answer is it is a distinct possibility. It is. And if this report continues to dig, I don't think the report is over. They filed a big piece of it the other day and going ahead and throwing out the all the not just the allegations, but what happened with Joe Oliva and the emails about firing Les Miles and the direct directives for him to stop doing what he was doing. And the fact that it has been, what did we say, 5 years since Les Miles got fired at LSU, and it's just coming to light. Yeah, I got to ask the question, was it an active decision? It was a decision. Was it an active decision at LSU to keep these things under wraps? Or was it a passive decision? Did they make it because they wanted to? Or did they make the decision because they knew if it got out, they were going to get roasted for it?
30 seconds, and you got a Harley in the next break.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. And Keegan asked the very creepy question, does Dakota know you keep dog ashes on yourself? Keegan, first off, you're a jerk. Second off, Dakota and Aiko were absolute BFFs when Aiko was alive.
Opinions are like the same. Everybody has one.
Call 844-GSP-ESPN. Local sports talk on the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate.
The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It's ESPN Upstate. Rob and Lonzo and you be a part of the program. 844-GSP-ESPN. Over on the stream, got a handful of folks watching over on the stream. Facebook.com/ESPN Upstate. The Rob Brown Show on Twitter and on YouTube. Brian asked the question, could it be a cover-up at LSU? Lonzo, I phrased it this way off the air. I'll do it now again since we're back on the air in Greenville. The answer to me is, it is a cover-up. They absolutely did cover it up. The question now is, was it an active decision to cover it up for years? Or was it a passive decision to cover it up for years? Did they actively go around saying, hey, we're not going to talk about this. Don't say it to anybody. Don't talk about it outside of us. Or did they go, we think we should fire him? Well, we're not going to fire him. All right, well, moving on, and just let it sit in the email inbox where anybody who would have had the forethought to go look through emails with a FOIA request might have stumbled upon it, but they just didn't distribute the information. So I think it is a cover-up by LSU. The question is, was it an active, ongoing cover-up where they knew they screwed up and just decided, well, now we're committed to it, so we got to own it? Or was it a passive where it was like, it happened, nothing happened out of it? It was just sitting in email inboxes for the past 5 years, and nobody had any reason to think and go and look for it.
I think it's a storm has passed type of thing. So they think everything's good. Okay, he's no longer with us. We don't need to worry about this anymore. And it wouldn't surprise me if someone, and I don't know for sure that money changed hands, but probably to keep people quiet. That's usually how it's done. Maybe one of those people decided, you know what, I want more money. And instead of doing that, they just decide to bring the story to light, get it out there because it was going to come out anyway, and and deal with what they have to deal with as far as punishment goes.
Yeah, I mean, it may be.
I know there's a lot of speculation,
sure,
but I mean, we can only go with the past and what we've seen happen there and other places.
There's absolutely a lot of speculation, and there's going to continue to be speculation as long as these A reports continue to come out, and B, these reports leave blank spaces in the conversation to be filled in. Here's what I do know about this. We're not going to spend all day on this. Coming up at 1 o'clock, right out of the top of the hour break, Rashad Beard of Panthers Nation is going to join us to talk a little bit about the franchise tag and his thoughts on the Panthers draft coming up very shortly. But before we get there, let's wrap this up and the hour up. There's going to be speculation because there are blanks in the story to still be filled in. And as long as the reports keep coming in and filling in the blanks, we'll continue to move closer to the truth. But there's not going to stop being room for speculation. Could it have been money that made someone come forward? Maybe. Could it have just been the fact that there was all it takes is one 24-year-old former LSU female athletic department employee who said, you know what? It's BS that we had to put up with these untoward, unwanted advances from Les Miles, and he's moving on and is getting millions at $2.5 million a year, and everybody else in the athletic department is being allowed to just walk scot-free. It's just garbage. I'm going to put it forward because all you got to do is get the right media member to clue in the right way, file some FOIA requests, go digging through emails from around the time that all this was happening, stumble upon one email where the athletic department chair says, I think the guy should be fired. The university president doesn't respond, and boom, it's a story. And just to be more than abundantly clear, it is a story. It should be a story, and it should remain a story so that no one else can get away with doing the same thing. Quick break. We come back. We'll round out hour number one. Rob Lonzo and you. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. This is ESPN Upstate.
Harley.
You're listening to The Rob Brown Show. Listen on your phone everywhere on the radio.com app. Download the app and make ESPN Upstate a favorite for 24/7 real, unfiltered sports talk.
So I want to talk to the ladies around the upstate of South Carolina. Why? Because I have noticed, and I am in love with the fact that there are more women riding motorcycles than ever before. And as we continue to roll through Women's Month, as we continue to celebrate yesterday's National Women's Day, it is National Women's History Month. Well, the folks over at Harley-Davidson of Greenville are celebrating with you as well. Ladies, if you ride, if you like being up on two wheels, you need to throw on your calendar right this second, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on March 23rd. Why? Because Harley-Davidson of Greenville is throwing a ladies-only garage party right there at the shop. They are going to have appetizers and refreshments. They are going to welcome any woman who knows how to ride, it does, or wants to learn how to ride. If you just want to go meet other ladies around the upstate to ride with, this is the event for you. They are going to have lessons. They are going to show you how to pick up your motorcycle, how to change the oil on your bike. They're going to be giving away swag bags. They're going to teach you how to pack your bike for different trips, gear demonstrations, door prizes, riding tips. It is going to be a party, and ladies, it is just for you. Whether you want more knowledge about how to ride the bike, maybe you're looking for some more gear for your own hog, maybe you just want to meet other women to ride around the upstate with, the Ladies Only Garage Party is March 23rd from 6 to 8 p.m. at Harley-Davidson of Greenville, 30 Chrome Drive right here in Greenville. Or check them out online at upstateharley.com. Get registered now for that event, and you will be entered to win a $25 gift card from Harley-Davidson of Greenville. It's the Ladies Only Harley-Davidson of Greenville Garage Party, March 23rd, 6 to 8 p.m. Get registered now at upstateharley.com. It's upstateharley.com. It's Harley-Davidson of Greenville.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Zoe.
Send me the phone number for the guest unless they're calling us.
They are not, and I will.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I don't know why to adjust the camera issue. I think it may be on your end because it looks fine over on the actual StreamYard feed, but and it may have to do with streaming. As long as you're clear, that's all that matters.
I'm relatively sure it is because of the fact that, so I didn't think about this. I had to hardwire the Comrex into the internet, so I could not hardwire my laptop. So my laptop was working on a not so great Wi-Fi connection, whereas because the hardwire had to go into the Comrex. So once I get back to Greenville next week, you should go back to being clear and beautiful as always.
I like being fuzzy and out of focus because it looks like you're being haunted by something. There's the phone number, so write it down on something so that you may. And we used to be in a different studio. We were in Magic Studio. Didn't do it over there either.
Oh, it's magic. You know.
That's beautiful.
Nah, it's not. I blew my voice out this past weekend.
Who sang that song? I'm trying to remember.
No, it wasn't the OJs.
I think it was more recent. Well, not that recent,
it
but
was not recent.
I mean, more recent. No. Compared to the OJs, more. Yeah.
Dadgummit, who sang that song? Hang on. I'm rubbing my 6 remaining brain cells together, Alonzo.
Text us anytime at 71307. Use keyword ESPN followed by your comment. Local sports talk on The Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate.
So, Pilot. That's the name of the band. Pilot. During the break, we were over on the stream, and Alonzo mentioned that they were in the old Magic Studios, and I sang, oh, it's Magic, you know, and we couldn't figure out the band. So it's Pilot.
Yeah, and the funny part is you're saying that like you know that band and you're a fan of that band and you've heard of another song that band has done.
Nope, not at all.
And neither have I.
That song has been on every oldie station I've ever listened to with my mom since I was a child, and I've heard it over and over, which is why I had to rack the brain to come up with Pilot and know no other Pilot songs at all.
I'm gonna have to look at. There's no way they had another hit. But I'm sure they get residuals from all the commercials that they're on.
Yeah, that song gets used on 11 commercials a year, every year for everything from like baby shampoo to laundry detergent and back. All right, coming up in the next hour of the show, we are going to lead off with Rashad Beard. Rashad is the host of the Panthers Nation podcast. I stumbled upon that podcast a couple of days ago when I was clicking around YouTube videos looking for some Panthers content to consume to get ready for the show. Really like what Rashad Beard does with Panthers Nation. You can find him on YouTube. We'll introduce him to you. He's going to start doing some weekly spots with us moving forward. I really, really liked his stuff. So Rashad Beard in the next segment. Then, after that, I want to get back to the Russel Wilson talk, but not necessarily for the reason that you think I'm going to want to get back to the Russell Wilson stuff. For I have heard a comparison made frequently recently about, well, if you're married to one girl, you don't give her a list of other women you're going to date if you divorce. And it's a bad comparison. It's a very bad comparison. And I'm going to tell you why.
That sounds like a show for men comparison.
It is. It is. And I'm going to take down the host of the show for men for using that exact comparison and being wrong about it. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming up later on in the second hour as well. Also got some baseball discussions I want to get into. Also need to talk a little bit more about the mock draft. We'll do that with Rashad Beard and then have some continuing conversation about it. Mel Kiper Jr. has given his breakdown, and while Zoe spent the entire day yesterday absolutely dumping on the exploding barbed wire death match from AEW Revolution, I have watched it, and it is not as bad as he says it is, and it actually makes perfect sense in the storyline. I'm going to tell you why Lonzo's wrong coming up in a few minutes as well. Second hour is going to be, as the kids say, lit. It's coming up next. I'm Rob. He's Zoe. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. This is ESPN Upstate.
Rashad standing by.
Outstanding. You guys are going to like Rashad. He's got some good stuff.
For an official Rob Brown lockdown.
Represents being real. Yeah.
Real, unfiltered sports talk. Manufactured locally for the Carolinas.
Lockdown.
This is the Rob Brown Show.
Yeah.
Only on ESPN.
ESPN Upstate.
Hour number 2 of the Rob Brown Show is underway. This is ESPN Upstate 97.7 FM Greenville, 97.1 FM Spartanburg, and all around the world on the radio.com app. Put it on all your digital devices and don't miss a minute of the show at any point from anywhere. We're just here to make your life better. And to help do that, we're going to talk a little Carolina Panthers football. We go to the phone lines now. Welcome in on the guest line, the host of the Panthers Nation podcast. I stumbled upon it over the weekend. I have been consuming videos from this young man since I stumbled upon it. Put out a video not terribly long ago calling out about the franchise tag. Nailed the prediction. Rashad Beard of Panthers Nation podcast joins us here on the show. Rashad, my man, appreciate you taking a minute. It's great to have you on the air, bud.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the invite, man. Anytime to come on and talk Panthers football, I'm down.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into that, do me a favor. We're going to be having you on, hopefully, with some regularity, either every weekly or every couple of weeks as we head towards the NFL draft and then through camps and into the season, et cetera. Just give everybody a little bit of background about who you are, where you came from, how you ended up as a Panthers fan, and where you have your passion to be able to produce as much content about the Carolina Panthers as you do.
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, I got to give a shout out to my co-host Dave. He also is a member of the Panther Nation podcast, and we decided to start this channel, man. I think it was about 2017, 2018, just because we always talk Panthers football, and we thought, hey, why don't we just record ourselves doing it? And years later, we're up to about 5,000 subs on YouTube. And so it's just been great, man. But I'm from Charlotte. I live in Charlotte. I've been a fan since '95. So I'm a lifelong homer. And it is what it is. I went to college in Greensboro. I'm a hometown guy. So listen, I just love the Panthers, and it's just a constant daily feed of information from the Panthers. That's what I strive to do. So it is what it is, man. I love the Panthers.
I love it. Rashad Beard, host of the Panthers Nation podcast, joining us here on the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate. All right, let's jump into what is obviously the big news. The franchise tag handed down by the Carolina Panthers today. Decide to go across the offensive line. A very, very good right tackle in Moton getting the franchise tag. I watched the video that you put up I want to say a couple of days ago about why this would be the right decision. Hopefully a long-term contract extension. I mean, to be honest with you, and you hit on it, and I absolutely nailed it. Absolutely. I think you nailed it, and I agree with you, which is I would much rather get this guy a long-term contract than have him play under the tag. But you kind of feel like the Panthers made the right decision if this is working towards giving a long-term contract to a very consistent, very reliable, very good offensive tackle.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes the obvious isn't so obvious, right? If you've been a Panthers fan for a long time, you know that the obvious just isn't always obvious. And I think, Scott Fitter has come in and he's made some good moves. I'm a fan of what he's done so far, and I really like Taylor Moton a lot. He's just a guy that's just going to constantly be on the field. He's just a really, really good right tackle, one of the top right tackles in the league. You don't hear his name called very much. You see that the players are giving him the football to spike after the touchdown. So, he's just a very, very good player. And it's just obvious. It's common sense to invest in the offensive line. Listen, it's been turnstile at the offensive line for the Panthers forever. And it's finally time to put forth some effort into keeping some consistency on the offensive line. The first step was to tag Taylor Moton. Now, I agree with you said. What you said as well is that we definitely need to move towards a long-term deal. This is just the first step. Again, it's going to cost us anywhere from $13.5 to $14.5 million if he plays on that tag. That's not doing us any favors. We need to get him into a long-term deal so that it lessens the cap burden this year, and you can kind of move that burden into 2022 and give us some cap flexibility to go out and be active in free agency. So. Yeah, man, it's a good first step, but the work is definitely not over, and I think it's the first step. It's a good first step, and we're actually showing some effort into fixing the offensive line. I got a hashtag called Fix the Trenches, and this is the first step.
I like it. Rashad Beard from the Panthers Nation podcast joining us here on the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate, and I was scrolling around Twitter this morning, Rashad, and I saw some people asking the question, why use the tag? Why put it on an offensive tackle? Why this one? And there's a couple of reasons, I think. Tell me what you think about it. First off, the dude is incredibly consistent. Played every snap for the offense this past season. Has really had no injury concerns since he came into the league. Second off, he's an absolute anchor. And then the third is just the numbers, right? You're looking at probably, if you gave him the deal that played to the value for what he provides for Carolina, Sports Illustrated had it estimated as him deserving around a 5-year, $14 to $15 million a year range. Paying him on a franchise tag saves you about $13.6 million, gives you some additional cap room, and it keeps an anchor for an offense that I personally think Rashad is ready to turn the corner this year if they can get the right quarterback in the draft. This move makes every bit of sense to me, provided you can get a long-term deal done with the cat coming off the tag next year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Again, it's all about, getting a long-term deal in place. You don't want him playing on the tag. Now, Moton may say, hey, I'm going to bet on myself. Similar to what Dak Prescott just did. Look how that worked out for him. I may bet on myself. I'm not going to sign it. If you're not going to give me the number I want, then I'm just going to not sign it. And I think he has all the leverage in the world. I mean, who else are we going to play at right tackle? I mean, you got Greg Little, who I think, is not – I mean, he's one – I say this all the time, but he's one helmet knock away from being in his career. I'm not trying to be funny, but the guy is super injury prone, and he's got a lot of injury concerns, even with Dennis Daly. He's got injury concerns, couldn't stay on the field last year. You need to invest in the offensive line, and who else would you use it on? I mean, Curtis Samuel, I love Curtis Samuel. I have a 3-part series that I did 2 years ago to prove it on why Curtis Samuel was – I feel bad for the guy because he was often misused. Quarterbacks, even Cam Newton, when he was injured, could not hit Curtis Samuel. I love Curtis Samuel to death, but at the end of the day, Curtis Samuel's production can be replaced. It's just a fact. I know a lot of Panthers fans may not like that, but Curtis Samuel's production can be replaced. He's like the 4th option when Christian McCaffrey's healthy. So you don't want to spend a ton of money on a guy like Curtis Samuel. You need to fix the trenches. Going back, again, for all those that are against using the tag on Taylor Moton, did you not watch the Super Bowl? Do you not see what's going on? The game is won and lost in the trenches. Okay, and I know that the Chiefs were dealing with some injuries, but that speaks to the point. You have to get depth, and you have to have the rock-solid starters. If you don't have that, you're going to get demolished. And the game is won and lost in the trenches. And again, that was the first step of getting it done, keeping Taylor Moton, tagging him, and again, playing on that long-term, getting him a long-term deal signed. That's it. That's the bottom line. It needs to be done. And it's a good first step for the Panthers.
Rashad Beard is the host of the Panthers Nation podcast. You can find him. I've been watching his videos like crazy the last few days on YouTube. Want you to jump there. Tremendous Panthers content. Let's jump over, and I know you've talked about this a billion times, but I want the chance to discuss it with you for the first time here on ESPN Upstate, Rashad, and that's where we stand with the draft. I've been keeping an eye on the constant flow of mock drafts out of the ESPN experts, the CBS Sports experts, the SI experts, and basically everybody has Carolina taking a quarterback, which I agree with. The question is where and whom. I have seen Carolina jumping up as high as 4 or 5 in order to get a Justin Fields or a Zach Wilson. I want to say CBS Sports last week had them jumping all the way up to number 2 in order to get Zach Wilson. I've seen them hanging out and taking Mac Jones at number 8. Based on what we saw out of Matt Rule this year, based on what we know about the skill position talents, if I said that you, Rashad Beard, could wish any reality into life with the exception of getting Trevor Lawrence at number 1, you can have any QB you want, who's the guy, and then realistically, who do you think Carolina ends up with?
Well, my dream scenario is Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields offers a lot. I know I know that the Greenville Nation is not going to like that, but he straight up torched Clemson, and you guys saw it on full display that this guy has what it takes. Now, he's not perfect by any means. He has, and no rookie quarterback is going to be, and I think that whoever we draft is going to need time to come in and develop. We need to give them time. They're not going to be day one fixers. But I love Justin Fields' game. He offers a lot. He's a legit dual threat. He's one of those guys you can drop the runs for. He can throw deep passes. He's actually more accurate with the deep throws than Zach Wilson. I know everybody's all on Zach Wilson about his deep throw accuracy, but actually Justin Fields was more accurate when it comes to deep throws. So I love Justin Fields. I think that's the dream scenario. And you listen, there's a lot of rumors going around that he may fall. But I'm of the thought that, listen, if the quarterbacks, just to kind of back up a little bit, I don't like the way we handled the Teddy Bridgewater situation. I think we alienated Teddy Bridgewater. I don't think he was the perfect quarterback, but I think he was a solid bridge. I think given a little bit more time, I think he would have been a little bit better in year 2. Definitely not the long-term solution for sure. I agree there. But even if we do get a Justin Fields, I would have liked to see a Justin Fields play behind Teddy Bridgewater for a year and then come back, or come in 2022 and play well. But it appears that's not going to be the case. But I think Justin Fields is a great talent, and I think you're going to have to jump to go get whatever the quarterback, whether it's a Zach Wilson, a Trey Lance, or even a Justin Fields. You're going to have to jump up to at least 3 or 4, and I think it all hinges on what the Jets do. If the Jets decide to stick with Sam Darnold and go elsewhere and draft an offensive lineman or a wide receiver, I think that's kind of where the draft starts for us. Now, if they go quarterback, we're definitely going to have to be in discussions with Miami to get their pick to then take whatever quarterback is left over, whether that's Justin Fields, Trey Lance. But if you're going to get a quarterback, I think, and you want the game changer, the guy that can create with his legs, can do all things, I think you have to jump up to number 3. Now, if we stand pat at 8, I'm going through a lot of scenarios, but I think this is kind of what you have to do. I think there's so many ways it can go. If you stand at 8, you have the possibility of getting Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is going to be there at 8. I'm not a fan. I think Mac Jones is talented. I just don't think he's going to be in the right situation with the Panthers. I don't think the Panthers have the offensive line in front of him that he had at Alabama. We don't have everything that he needs in place to be successful. I think really it's the offensive line. I think we have the skill positions. We have the Christian McCaffrey, obviously. We just need the offensive line to protect him because he's not the most mobile guy in the world. So I think Mac Jones at 8 is going to be an option. I don't want that to happen. I'd much rather go up to get your guy at 3 or 4 or 2 or 3, in Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. But that's the dream scenario for me. Anybody else, I don't see the Panthers waiting to pick up a Jamie Newman or Kellen Mond in later rounds. I think David Tepper has put his QB thirst, that's what I call it, on full display. QB thirst. He's thirsty for a QB. The QB thirst is on full display, and I think he's going to go up and get his guy. And as long as it's the right guy, I agree with it. I just don't want to reach for the wrong one, because that's going to set us back even further.
Rashad Beard of Panthers Nation joining us here on the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate. Last one, let you go, Rashad, because like I said, we're going to look forward to having you on a lot more frequently moving towards the draft. So the big conversation and the more draft talk we've had here on the show, what I've routinely said is I'm drafting, a lot of where I'm drafting is based on the fact that I'm looking at this Panthers team. And I'll give you full disclosure, Rashad, I'm a Saints fan. I'm from New Orleans originally, so I've always had a close connection sharing a division with Carolina. Now that I'm in the Carolinas, I want them to do well because, well, I get paid more when they do, if we're being honest. So I think Carolina is sitting right on the verge. I mean, this is a great opportunity. We know Tampa's going to be good again next year with Tom Brady coming back. You got a bunch of guys that are taking hits to make the team better. Tampa's your division leader next year, but whether it's Jameis Winston or somebody else, the Saints are going to have to start over. Atlanta, for whatever reason, just keeps running headfirst into the same stupid brick wall and not figuring out what to do to change it. This is a really good year for Carolina to have an opportunity to really take a step ahead of New Orleans and Atlanta. I believe with the talent they have in place that Carolina sits right on the cusp of going from rebuilding into built and improving, but they've got to get the right guy. Do you think Carolina is ready to turn off rebuild mode and turn on improve mode, or do you think there's another year of rebuilding mode for Matt Rule's squad?
I guess that's a two-part question. In my opinion, I don't think we're as close as people want to portray that we are. I think we're close, but I don't. For me, it's about the slow build, right? I think we should take it slow, get the pieces in place. This is why I've been a proponent of drafting a quarterback in 2022. But again, that Teddy Bridgewater ship has sailed, right? I don't think he's coming back for whatever reason. We've kind of alienated him. But I was a proponent of the slow build, kind of getting the pieces in place, make sure that offensive line is in place so that when we do get a quarterback, much like the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes, they were a successful team before he got there. We're not at that point. If you wanted to do what the Chiefs did, we're nowhere near where they were. Alex Smith was their quarterback, and they were a playoff team. And I think that's where we should have been building. We should have been building towards that direction. But again, I think the QB thirst has gotten in the way. So do I think we could overtake the Saints? Maybe. Do I think we can overtake the Falcons? I'm hopeful. Listen, I think Matt Rule is turning the corner a little bit. But I think the roster, especially, I have to see what we do with the offensive line. Listen, I think Taylor Moton is the first step. But listen, other than that, you got Matt Paradis on the contract, and you've got two guard positions that are. Dennis Daly again. He's injury prone. You've got Mike Horton, who's if the season started today, he's an undrafted free agent. Undrafted free agent out of Auburn. He would be your starter. So then there's no left tackle. So we have a long way to go, especially on the offensive line, for me to be comfortable in saying yes, we're good. Now we do have a lot of cap space. We're good with cap in comparison to others. We're good on cap space. I think free agency is going to determine a lot. But I think we could be close. But I still think we have one more year of rebuild before 2022 turns on. And that's when I think we really turn the corner, because that's when there's a ton of cap space opened up. Teddy Bridgewater will be officially off the books. You will definitely be having a quarterback on a rookie contract. Therefore, you can spend all kinds of free agent money. And I think that's when it really starts. So for me, I have low expectations for next season as well. That's just me personally. I'm not saying that anybody else should. I like to keep my expectation low and let the team deliver. But for me, expectations are low for 2021, 2022. But then in 2022, when Tom Brady's gone, when Matt Ryan may be gone, I think that is when we really take over. And I think that's when the rebuild should really start.
I love it. Rashad Beard is the host of the Panthers Nation podcast. You can find it on YouTube. It's a tremendous channel. We're going to help Rashad get to over 5K followers in the next couple of days with the Rob Brown Nation influence here. You can also follow him on Twitter at SoAmbitious_YC. SoAmbitious_YC. YC. He is absolutely going to be one of our foremost Panthers contributors here on the Rob Brown Show. Rashad, tremendous conversation, man. It is a pleasure to get to talk to you, and looking forward to doing a whole heck of a lot more often as we head towards the draft, big guy.
Hey, man, I appreciate that. Anytime you need me, I'm here. So I appreciate the time.
Book it. Rashad Beard at @SoAmbitious_YC on the Twitter. Appreciate his time. Tremendous conversation about the Panthers. Let's take a break. We'll come back here in just a minute. Break some of that down. Your thoughts, 844-GSP-ESPN, 844-477-3776. Text us at 71307, 71307. Start your text with ESPN. Join us on the stream, facebook.com/ESPN Upstate, twitter.com/The Rob Brown Show, and at The Rob Brown Show on YouTube. We're back right after this on The Rob Brown Show. This is ESPN Upstate.
You're listening to The Rob Brown Show. Listen on your Amazon or Google smart speaker. Just say, play ESPN Upstate.
That's a good conversation with Rashad Beard. Like to have a new voice on the show.
Hey, Rob. If I were not training during that moment, I wanted to jump in on him, on some of the things he was talking about, especially a certain player from Ohio State, because, with my bias and everything.
I was wondering if you were going to jump in when he did a little Justin Fields talk, because he was kind of hyping your boy just a bit.
He was. And I wasn't even talking about him. I was talking about a certain receiver who he said was, third or fourth option that you could just get rid of. And the problem is that certain receiver has been injured a lot. And who's also from Ohio State. I think, there's so many Ohio State players on there. Yeah, I'm tooting the horn of the Ohio State players because, I have to. Chances are the team you root for, there's a Buckeye on it. Chances are. So, yes, no, but I really enjoyed his takes because they agreed with most of mine, and that's usually how that works.
He's going to be doing a weekly Panther spot with us from now on. So you'll get your chance.
Justin Fields is the way to go, but we'll see what happens. The draft is around the corner. Cannot wait for that to happen.
That's a fact.
Every time Rob switches to just me, oh man, the feed is rough though. It's like, oh, I look like the guy from, well, resembling King Kong Bundy with hair a little bit. And then there are moments when I look like the pastor from Poltergeist 2. Which is one
King Kong Bundy, huh?
Yeah, that's why I won't shave my head. No matter how much weight I lose, I'm gonna look like King Kong Bundy with head scars. That's exactly what I'm gonna look like. You know, when you're watching a show and or a movie and someone's slightly out of focus in the background, and you know it's like a possession, a spirit, or something like that. Well, that's what my feed is looking like the entire time. So, and I keep wanting to say, "Why don't you just let me in?
Let me in.
Let me in."
Also, did you watch Raw last night?
I did not.
They did so they're pushing this Shane McMahon Braun Strowman feud.
Told you.
Shane comes out to cut a promo on Braun, and he spends the first legitimately 2 minutes walking around with a microphone going, check. I'm testing it. Hang on, I'm testing it. Check. Then he goes, Braun. Braun, I can't even talk to you about this. And then he walks down the ramp, and then he stops, and then he turns around, and he just, 7 minutes, Shane McMahon breathed heavily into a microphone. The payoff for the promo was he goes, Braun, some people are calling you stupid, not me. Braun. And then he walks. Whole segment.
All right, so we've got 30 seconds, by the way. You've accused me of false depiction of AEW. I'm going to accuse you of false depiction of WWE, and we'll see which one's right.
Join the Rob Brown Lockdown on Twitter. Tweet at The Rob Brown Show on the Upstate Sports Leader, ESPN Upstate.
Thanks again to Rashad Beard for joining us right here on the Rob Brown Show to talk a little Carolina Panthers football with us. And Zoe, your thoughts, man? I got to tell you, we talked about the Panthers likely going quarterback. I said, Rashad, you're the GM. Pull the string you want. You can't have Trevor Lawrence because Jacksonville's not doing anything but drafting TL16. Knowing that, what's your perfect scenario? And he said the perfect scenario for me, regardless of having to trade up or not, would be to end up with Justin Fields, quarterback, Ohio State University. He's the most all-around playmaker. He's a guy that can do it. He said, in my dream scenario, we would have kept Teddy Bridgewater to give Justin Fields one bridge year to learn from a former NFL starter. But he says Fields is the guy. And the only shocking thing about that interview to me, Zoe, was that you didn't jump in to talk about how right Rashad was.
When someone's right, you don't want to interrupt their flow, man. I mean, you want to let that stuff go. And I am also training, and he was just so right. I couldn't add to that. And he was confirming everything that I've said so far. So, I mean, there are people with opinions like Rashad and I that Justin Fields is the way to go. I mean, if you're looking for accuracy, if you're looking for mobility, if you're looking for a guy who usually steps up in big situations, Justin Fields is the way to go. And it was 1A and 1B, and then suddenly Justin Fields dropped, just like we talked about yesterday. And I think there's some politics going on to make him drop on purpose, so he will fall in the lap of the team that really wants him. And I think it's the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah. It's going to take a move up for Justin Fields. All right. We've seen the mock drafts where Justin Fields has fallen. We are seeing the mock drafts where Justin Fields is getting taken number 2. I am leaning right now based on what we know. I'm leaning right now on the Jets taking Zach Wilson, not Justin Fields. I think that allows them to get what they believe will be an upgrade over Sam Darnold, but not having to shift the offense too much. Although we also know that both the new head coach and the new offensive coordinator for the New York Jets are guys that like to run a Shanahan-style offense, and a running quarterback can succeed in that. Fields, look, Zach Wilson can escape the pocket, but he's not Justin Fields in terms of his ability to do so. So I'm kind of up in the air. I'm leaning they go Justin or Zach Wilson out of BYU, though I could be wrong. Carolina has two options, Lonzo. Option one is they make the trade with the Jets to jump up to the 2 spot. Now, that's going to cost you a lot, because not only do the Jets have to be happy to drop back to 8 where they know Justin Fields is going to be gone, it's going to be Matt Jones or it's going to be Trey Lance. I don't know that they're necessarily thrilled with either one of those two quarterbacks, but you're going to have to not only recomp them for jumping to 2, but also recomp them to add to whatever one of those quarterbacks that they will consider inferior at that position, because you're not, I don't think so. I don't think Justin Fields is on the board at 8. I don't think he's slipping that far down. Most people have him as the number 2 quarterback in this draft class. Most people have him ahead of Zach Wilson. In fact, I don't think either one of those guys is going to be available at 8 when the Panthers come up. So if you want those cats, if you don't want to roll the dice on a Mac Jones or a Trey Lance at 8, Zoe, Carolina's going to have to give away some draft capital to get there. But it is the most important position on the football field. If there is one position you want to overinvest in, and it's the quarterback spot in today's NFL, Lonzo. So I think Carolina's going to be on the move on draft day number 1.
Agreed. Now, if you can go all the way up to 2, it means the Jets have decided that they're going to give Sam Darnold another year. Because if you're happy with Darnold, and it's a new coach, he doesn't know exactly what he gets with him. Maybe he looks at the film and goes, okay, in my system, he would do a whole lot better, and he wants to be able to prove that. And maybe he spent some time with Darnold and decided, we're going to put out there that we want another quarterback. Let people think that, so they're willing to up their trade capital, but we plan on keeping Sam Darnold all along. And if that's the case, like I said, if they trade out of 2, then I think they keep Sam Darnold. And is Justin Fields or any of these quarterbacks worth trading up to 2? I know a lot of people would say Trevor Lawrence absolutely is, but is any other quarterback worth trading up to 2? And it really depends on what you're willing to give up and what you already have on your team. And you've got a young team, and whether people want to talk about rebuilding or not, that's what they're doing. That's why they got rid of all the veterans last year. And it's got to be a 2 to 3 year process. So I think, you got to be willing to give up some stuff and move up wherever you need to move up if you think this is your guy. And I think he's got the potential to be really good for a long time.
844-477-3776, 844-GSP-ESPN is the number to be a part of the program. Text us, 71307, 71307. Start your text with ESPN. Join us on the stream, facebook.com/ESPN Upstate. Check that out. You can also check us out on the Twitter, twitter.com/The Rob Brown Show, and on the YouTube channel at The Rob Brown Show. Want your thoughts. So we've had Rashad Beard's thoughts. He said if he's GM and it's up to him, that he is going Justin Fields no matter what it takes. Zoe's got his back, says that's the guy. That's the one if you're ready to go. My thought, you got to have a quarterback. If Justin Fields is your highest valued quarterback, you make the move. If Zach Wilson is your highest valued quarterback, you make the move. And if you think that you would be happy hanging out and taking Mac Jones, then you're probably okay at number 8, though you got to have your finger on the trigger for what happens on draft day. What are your thoughts? Where do you think they line up? Check it out. 844-GSP-ESPN, Texas 71307. Quick break. Back after this on The Rob Brown Show. This is ESPN Upstate.
You're listening to The Rob Brown Show. Listen on your computer and
And now I got that song stuck in my head for the rest of the day, Lonzo.
Don't blame me, blame Drew.
Drew?
So what would you turn down for? That's the question.
What?
Exactly. All right, so Rob has promised to go on the air and talk about the barbed wire incident. And I have a theory as to what he's going to do.
Okay.
I would ask you, Rob, did you see Moxley after it went off the air?
I did see Moxley.
Okay, all right.
I think Moxley is a freaking
He's a genius. He is. He is.
He's a genius.
Without that, though, I mean, even with that, well, we'll talk about it on the air, but.
I got it all figured out, so.
Do you? Okay.
Got it all figured out.
I mean, they can act like it was done on purpose just for that whole thing, for Moxley to do what he did, and I don't believe it. I believe that him saying what he said really helped a lot, especially with the crowd there, because you could hear them upset and then slowly turn to be with him because he's so good on the mic. That's a pretty quick thinking for someone who's all bloodied up from going through barbed wire. Unless it was planned, which may be what you're going to say.
You know what we need? You know what we need? We need an impartial judge for this. We need a wrestling fan who is an impartial judge. Should we just, you know what I'm going to do? Here's what we're going to do, Zoe. I'm going to invite people to the stream, wrestling fans. I'm going to invite them to the stream. Coming up this segment, I'll invite them to the stream. And then the next segment, I will lay out my defense. And we will let the folks in the stream make the decision as if my argument clears the necessary burden of proof or not.
You know, this is all a great idea unless you believe in hung juries, which I do, which means a jury could be set up in such a way that the person in question, like me, who has a certain angle, would automatically lose no matter what. But I will say, counselor, men and women of the jury, it's on. I'm good.
I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I am not a cat.
1 minute prisoner in the next break.
Perfect.
Join the Rob Brown Lockdown on Twitter. Tweet at The Rob Brown Show on the Upstate Sports Leader, ESPN Upstate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the wrestling community of Upstate South Carolina, I need your help. We are about to do something. I figured it out. So the perfect use for our streaming services. The perfect use. I figured it out. So if you missed the show yesterday, you know that Zoe absolutely just took a you-know-what square in the middle of the AEW mat based on their Revolution pay-per-view over the weekend. Well, I, understanding the depth of storytelling that this organization is trying to provide to us, the fans, the depth of storytelling that they are giving to us for our entertainment. I understand the story that this wonderful organization is trying to tell. And coming up in the next segment, I am going to lay out my defense as to why the AEW exploding barbed wire death match was just frankly not understood by my colleague, Lonzo, who I believe has the insight and knowledge to understand when a great story is laid out before him, but ladies and gentlemen, has elected intentionally not to do so in order to advance his own self-interest in our wrestling conversation. So here's what we're going to do. The stream is up right now at facebook.com/ESPN Upstate. Twitter.com/The Rob Brown Show, and at The Rob Brown Show on YouTube. Here's what is going to happen. In the next segment, I am going to lay out my defense as to why the exploding barbed wire death match between Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega at this weekend's AEW Revolution pay-per-view was actually very, very well done. It's actually very well done. And there are people who want to cut the legs out of this wrestling promotion that is trying, on the behalf of we the people, to take a chunk out of the way from the stale, set in their ways, content to be paid without putting anything new on the table monopoly that is the WWE. I'm going to lay that defense out in the next segment. And you, ladies and gentlemen, the wrestling fans of upstate South Carolina, you are going to decide if my defense of their storyline earns them a second chance. But in order to vote on this, you will have to either go to the stream or be prepared to text in your answer, okay? So twitter.com/The Rob Brown Show, search at The Rob Brown Show on YouTube, or go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/ESPN Upstate and prepare yourself, because in the next segment, I will lay out my case, the facts of the case, and what Lonzo is missing from said list of facts to prove to you that that was an exceptionally well-told story. And then you will decide who has won this debate, me or Colonel Grudge himself, Lonzo, my peer on the other side of this argument.
You know, I'm trying to decide what kind of lawyer I'm going to be as the prosecuting attorney in this here case. And I believe I've decided that the Southern lawyer is the way to go, especially here in the South, where wrestling, if you will, is king. So we're going to show that Rob Brown and his ilk are wrong in their assumptions that this was planned a certain way. This is what we call an open and shut case.
Ladies and gentlemen, the man from Ohio is playing to you and your sentimentality to try to poison the well of my argument before it's even made. I think that will tell you all you need to know. So join the stream at facebook.com/ESPN Upstate, twitter.com/The Rob Brown Show, or at The Rob Brown Show on YouTube, and be prepared to text in. I will lay out my defense coming up next. You will tell me if my defense sticks or does not. That's next up on The Rob Brown Show. This is ESPN Upstate.
Prisma.
You're listening to The Rob Brown Show. Let the game come to you. Listen no matter where you go. In Anderson, Clemson, Greenville, and Spartanburg. ESPN Upstate is always streaming on the radio.com app.
You may have a very specific need of some type of health care to help make your life better. Whether you or someone you love is fighting cancer, whether you or someone you love has heart issues you're concerned about, you are having some orthopedic issue, joint pain, muscle pain, bone issues, or whether you're just looking for a new primary care doctor to make sure you are staying on top of your health as you continue to get older. Prisma Health is here for you. With over 2,400 healthcare providers across the upstate, Prisma Health has folks who are good at what they do, folks that you can trust to take care of you and your health issues from the get-go, and those folks are waiting to hear from you. Check out their website at prismahealth.org, prismahealth.org. You can learn about all the different services: cancer care, heart care, neuroscience, orthopedics, primary care, women's health, whatever you might need help with. Prisma Health has healthcare providers who are there for you that you can trust. They are the first healthcare providers, the official healthcare providers for both the Gamecocks and the Tigers, and they will be the official healthcare providers of your team, your family as well. To learn more, go to prismahealth.org, prismahealth.org. It's Prisma Health here in the upstate.
So I just got to believe that you accused me of pandering to the audience.
I didn't want to call you a full-on carpetbagger.
Yeah,
Makes me feel better.
Well, in the eyes of many, I'm a Yankee, which makes no sense because I'm from Ohio. But that's fine, you know. Uh-oh. You completely froze there for a second. I don't know if we lost you. You're still there, right?
Am I here?
Yeah, you're good. Okay. Your feed stuck in a kissy face. It was awesome. Wasn't implying anything. That's exactly what it looked like, though.
Didn't think you were.
That is no different. Right now, PLC Motors is launching their 7-day exchange guarantee program. If you buy a vehicle from PLC Motors in the first 7 days,
all you gotta do is throw in a little bit of Dusty. You don't have to put a whole lot of Dusty in there. Just a little bit of Dusty in there.
I am the son of a plumber, and if there's one thing a blue-collar man like me knows.
Hey, Furman fans, Dan Scott, the voice of your Paladins here.
I had something there, but I'm not saying it because I'm saving it.
Thank you for your continued unwavering support of Furman University athletics. Your commitment to Furman student athletes is amazing, whether it be through your incredible generosity or something as simple as engaging with our broadcast here on ESPN Upstate. We thank you and urge you to continue to support our
So I finally was attacked by another player in Fallout 76. And here's why. There are certain places that you can claim, and if you claim them, if someone steals something from those places, then you become wanted. And I was in a town, and I didn't realize that a safe belonged to somebody until after I already cracked it. And then there was a 10 cap bounty put on me. So then what these higher level
caps is the currency, if I recall.
Yeah. And what these higher level players do is they do that hoping to capture someone like myself, and then they come and ask you to join their party, which is what this guy did. And I just didn't respond because I'm trying to play it on my own, and then he killed me. And he was like a level 500 or something, and I was like a level 29. So
your fight only became because you're a dirty thief.
Pretty much. It's after I cracked the safe, I was like, oh no, they're coming for me now. It's like, how much can I get somewhere near a spawn point when I die? That way it doesn't cost me. And and then I came back and the guy was still there and he was hounding me, but he couldn't affect me afterwards.
Right.
So I just left the server and then came back in and he was gone. So 20 seconds.
Rob Brown Lockdown on Twitter. Tweet at The Rob Brown Show on the Upstate Sports Leader, ESPN Upstate.
Rob Brown Show, back on your radio. ESPN Upstate, wrapping up hour number 2 right here on the broadcast. So, Zoe and I have had a discussion going for the past couple of days. And for those of you who have yet to see it, AEW Revolution, the pay-per-view on Sunday, ended the exploding barbed wire death match with what Lonzo describes as a complete dud. The ring exploded by having basically 4 firecracker sprinklers strapped to the ring post and a few puffs of smoke come out from underneath the ring. Eddie Kingston came out.
By the way, it's just like when your dad brings fireworks home and Dad doesn't normally let fireworks off, and he gives you 4 sparklers and a couple smoke bombs. That's exactly what it was.
All right. So, and if you can test any of how I'm describing this match, Lonzo, you correct me. So Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers handcuff Jon Moxley inside the ring, immobilizing him. Eddie Kingston, the guys come out. Kingston jumps in the ring. He's trying to get Moxley out before the ring explodes with the 30-second timer. Realizes he's not going to be able to get Moxley out, so he dramatically covers Jon Moxley to protect him from the explosion. Less of an explosion, more of a, and that's really it. Eddie Kingston then rolls off of Jon Moxley as if he has been shot in the face and sells it as if it was the biggest explosion of all. Any of that do you contest before I lay out my defense, Alonzo?
No, that's accurate. It's a little more dramatic than that, but it was, in its simplest form, accurate.
Okay. So now that the facts of what happened are on the case, allow me to lay out my defense, Alonzo. Here is it. About 2 weeks ago on AEW Dynamite, an interview went down into the basement of the home of Kenny Omega, where he stumbled onto Don Callis and Omega and a couple of other guys who were in the process of doing what, Lonzo? Building the ring. They were building the ring, and AEW chalked it up to Omega and Callis.
Allegedly, yes.
No, they said as much, and Don Callis said, we are building what we are calling the Jon Moxley Exterminator. So, we know for a fact that the ring was constructed by Kenny Omega and Don Callis and some of their flunkies from the other company. So, we get to the match. Now, if you are wrestling another man inside of a ring that you believe is going to explode at some point in the future, and that your only hope of making it out of an explosion is to win the match and escape before it happens, then you, of course, are going to have that thought floating around in the back of your mind. Omega knew that the ring was not going to explode, and therefore had no distraction. He was able to focus 100% on only beating Jon Moxley. Moxley had the concern of the ring explosion going on in his head, which means he could not be 100% focused on beating Kenny Omega. So, because Omega built the ring, he got to focus 100% on the match. But see, because Omega and Callis created the ring, built the ring, they were the only ones that know that it was going to be a pathetic, quote, explosion, end quote, at the end of the match. Omega set it up so that if he did lose to Jon Moxley for some reason, he would not be harmed by the explosion of the ring. He knew that he was safe, but nobody else did, including Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston comes out to the ring. Not a fan, not a friend of Jon Moxley, just a guy who understood that in his mind, Jon Moxley's entire livelihood, career, dare I say potentially his entire life, hung in the balance based on that ring blowing up. Now, as Tim Taylor just said in the Facebook, he said it doesn't add up because once the clock got down to 10 seconds, Kenny ran off with everybody else. Of course he did. Why would Kenny Omega have left? Because he knew that if that ring did what that ring did and he was still there on the stage, he was going to catch a beatdown from Kingston, from Omega, and from anybody who was sympathetic to those two parties. So Omega used the distraction of the ring exploding, knowing it was not going to. It didn't matter. Everybody else there knew that the ring was going to explode. Omega knew it wasn't. So he used the distraction of the ticking clock and the exploding ring threat to escape with Don Callis before the rest of the wrestlers went, hey, you set this up, you're a fraud, and absolutely curb stomped him. Now, the next question that you might ask is, well, then why did Eddie Kingston sell it as if he had just been blasted by a shotgun shell to the chest? And the answer is this. Mental trauma in a life-threatening situation is real. Eddie Kingston thought that he was covering up Jon Moxley from a bomb going off underneath him. He had mentally accepted the fact that he was about to lay down his career and or his life to protect Jon Moxley's life from an exploding ring. Whether or not it actually exploded is irrelevant. In his mind, he was about to go through a bomb explosion and the interior of hell itself. His brain was not mentally healthy after that explosion. His brain was traumatized. He was in shock. So to expect him to have a normal reaction in what he thought was about to be a bomb going off and ending his career is not factual. That's not how human beings work. So Omega set it up so he could focus only on Jon Moxley and win. He used the distraction of the ring exploding to escape before him and Don Callis caught a beat down. Eddie Kingston, the reason he laid on the mat is because he thought he was about to die, and his brain effectively shut itself off to prepare itself for imminent death. And we know all of this connects back to the fact that Kenny Omega built the ring and intentionally designed it to not explode so that he could focus on Jon Moxley, which is why after the card, Jon Moxley said Eddie Kingston is a tough SOB, but he can't build an exploding ring worth a bleep. Omega did it intentionally. Kingston's brain shut down from shock, Lonzo. That, my man, is absolutely the correct defense. Mic drop. Rob Brown wins. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I just want to ask if we could have a recess for a couple of minutes, because I am not given ample time to come forth with the people's case to explain why Rob Brown, that northerner from northern Florida, is wrong with what he's saying. I just don't have enough time to bring forth the case.
O-H, Southern lawyer. O-H is all I have to say in response. All right. I will allow Lonzo time to lay out his case coming up in just a few minutes. But ladies and gentlemen, text us 71307. Agree or disagree with Rob? Do you dismiss the charges against AEW and accept my defense, or do you still hold AEW in contempt of wrestling? That's the question we pose to you. Quick break. We're back after this on the Rob Brown Show. This is ESPN Upstate.
ESPN Upstate, WYRD Greenville,
Lonzo, that was a damn good defense, and you know it. And you know it. Connected all the dots, drew all the lines.
I'm going to absolutely destroy you. Now the question, I will drop the Southern stuff, and we'll just jump in there and do what needs to be done. No, it was a very good job. It was very calculated, which is what you would expect from a northerner from Florida. I'm loving the comment.
Insulting thing you've ever said to me.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's see. Joseph said if they wanted to actually blow the ring up, they needed to kill the lights to hide the fact the pyro was nowhere near the ring and set off Batista's entrance amount of pyro. I do like your explanation. It's a way out, though. Thank you, Joseph. It is not a way out. It's the story, man. Brian says, I don't even have to listen to Zoe's defense. Zoe wins. That was a big reason. So first off, Zoe is the prosecuting attorney. All right. He's going to issue a case for prosecution of AEW. But that was not a reach at all. In fact, not only was it not a reach, everything I said was spot on accurate, spot on factual, top to bottom. Kingston built the ring. Omega built the ring. He knew what was going to happen. He had the mental advantage. Kingston and Joseph says anyone that knows Florida knows the further north in Florida to go, the further south you get. That, yes, we call the Florida Panhandle Lower Alabama for a reason, right? I'm not from the Panhandle. I'm from LA, son, Lower Alabama.
Warning.
And check this out.
For an official Rob Brown lockdown.
Represents being real. Yeah.
Real, unfiltered sports talk manufactured locally for the Carolinas.
Lockdown.
This is the Rob Brown Show.
Yeah.
Only on ESPN.
ESPN Upstate.
The Rob Brown Show rolls into hour number 3. This is ESPN Upstate. Rob and Lonzo with you here, rolling through the third, the final, the best, the money hour of the Rob Brown Show. Join us, won't you, at 844-GSP, ESPN 844-477-3776. Text us at 71307. Start your text with ESPN. Tweet us at the Rob Brown Show, at Lonzo one word, and at ESPN Upstate. All the different ways for you to get in touch with the show with us. Now, we are not going to spend the whole hour on wrestling, I promise. But I promised Lonzo I would give him time to lay out his prosecution of the case. I will recap very briefly my defense of the exploding barbed wire death match from AEW Revolution this weekend. There are some very simple facts to this case, ladies and gentlemen. On the air, Kenny Omega was shown building the ring with Don Callis. Kenny Omega therefore knew that the ring was not going to explode. There would be some sparklers and some smoke bombs. That was his out in case he lost this match, because he knew that the ring would not explode. He did not have to think about it. He could focus 100% on Jon Moxley. Moxley had to keep the bomb that he thought was going to go off in the back of his mind. Once he was immobilized and the rest of the AEW locker room was ready to help Moxley, Omega used the distraction of the ring that everyone else, us included, thought was going to physically explode as a distraction to clear himself out. Eddie Kingston jumped in the ring to save Jon Moxley. In Eddie Kingston's brain, he was about to go through an explosion, so his brain shut off. We had one texter that texted in and said Eddie Kingston having a heart attack fits in that story. Absolutely. There are any number of physical and psychological traumas that Eddie Kingston would have gone through thinking he was laying down literally on a bomb to save Jon Moxley, which would have created a physical response from him that left him traumatized and unresponsive inside the ring. Kenny Omega used all of that as a distraction to be able to escape without having any comeuppance from any other wrestlers who would have been angry at him for taking advantage of Jon Moxley. Ladies and gentlemen, there is the defense. Now, if you join us on the stream at facebook.com/ESPN Upstate, or you text in your response to 71307 with the text headline ESPN, the keyword ESPN, so we can read them on the air, you can vote who wins the case. Me as the defense attorney, Lonzo is the prosecuting attorney. Lonzo, I feel like I've made a very strong case here. The facts very clearly line up with me, the attorney from Lower Alabama, a.k.a. the actual South. Now, I turn it over, ladies and gentlemen, to this pandering prosecuting attorney who is going to try to convince you that he is one of you in order to win over your emotions to his side. Do not fall for his simple tricks and gamesmanship, ladies and gentlemen. Lonzo, I turn the microphone over to you, sir.
All right, you know what? Let's drop all the entertainment. Let's drop the Southern drawl and the supposed pandering, which is not pandering. I will say that I've lived here nearly half my life. And, you know, I know what I'm thinking, and I can pretty much guess what the pulse of the wrestling audience here is, pun intended. And if you get that, thank you. Saturday, 7 to 9 p.m. Here's the thing. All the setup that Rob is talking about is absolutely true, down to the basement and Omega and all that kind of stuff going on. But here's the problem with all of that. You AEW, switch your pay-per-view to Sunday night because you know you're not competing with the big boys. You know that you've got the opportunity to bring in an audience that you normally wouldn't have, which you did, including myself, because I never buy AEW pay-per-views just because I don't think they're up to par yet. But this one, after watching Dynamite the week before, which is excellent and much better than this pay-per-view, by the way, I thought, okay, they're there. They're where they need to be, and I want to see an exploding barbed wire death match. And my favorite wrestler is in that match. I want to see how well he does, and that would be Jon Moxley. The match itself was great. It was a really good match. Not any botches. The barbed wire looked very painful and bloody, as it should, to the point where you are sitting there wondering, why did I buy this? So, because you're watching this pain that these people are going through for our entertainment, and you're forced to examine yourself a little bit, but I'll throw that aside. So you know you're building to this ending. You've got a 30-minute countdown. People are wondering what's going to happen. And then the smoke bombs go off. Eddie Kingston is laying across Jon Moxley's body. And yes, does he sell it? Absolutely, he sells it. But here's the problem. All right, and a couple of messages nailed this. What they should have done and what WWE would have done, there would have been a flashbang. That would have been it. Okay, we wouldn't have known what happened. We wouldn't know if Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston survived. That's how you sell off a storyline. You don't sell it off like this. And the fact that Moxley had to grab a microphone after he was beat nearly to death, bloody all over the place, and blame it on Kenny Omega to save face for the company, that's pretty sad. And you also got to look at it, a WWE guy had to do that, not an AEW guy, a former WWE guy. And the entire time, if you watch the video, Kingston is still selling the trauma that Rob Brown is talking about, laying over there like he's going to need a stretcher to get him out of the ring. Now, if Kingston wouldn't have continued to sell, then I would be on Rob Brown's side. But the fact that Kingston continued to sell the entire time, that is showing that Rob is wrong and I am right. They didn't expect this to go the way it did. And I am believing that maybe there was more pyro that was supposed to happen. Maybe there were some more things that were supposed to happen. And whoever's in charge of said pyro, it misfired. As someone who lives in the Gray Court area and has been to their fireworks many times, the grand finale always ends up in a grass fire because they don't know what they're doing. I would say that this is the same sort of thing. AEW, not that experienced yet in some things like this, and they botched it. They botched it. Now, if Eddie Kingston would have stood up next to Moxley or sat next to him, coherent and laughing and nodding his head when Moxley was making fun of all that, then I would agree. But the fact that he kept selling all the way through that means that it was supposed to be devastating and it was not. And as someone who believes in writing a good story, they had no idea how to end the story correctly. Can they save it? Yeah, they absolutely can. And they will, thanks to Jon Moxley, former WWE wrestler.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if I may respond, I have a couple of issues with my co-counsel's prosecution strategy here. First and foremost, I'm looking around this library that I'm currently sitting in, and what I am not seeing anywhere is a Rules of Professional Wrestling book with rule number 1, thou must do it the way WWE would do it. I'm sorry. I thought Vince McMahon owned the WWE. I was unaware that Vincent Kennedy McMahon owned all of professional wrestling and everything must be done the way that WWE would do it. Number 2, ladies and gentlemen, the second issue.
I object.
On what grounds?
I just wanted to object.
Oh, that's actually fair. I've honestly also been looking for a moment to shout, I object, but I wasn't going to do it in the midst of your prosecution. So my first point stands as though it's just admitted that he has no objection to what I've just said. Number 2, the concept of a story is open-ended, ladies and gentlemen. A story does not have to begin and end with some archaic formula for the sake of, I'm not quite sure what that reason my prosecuting co-counsel believes the formula must be. Why must the story have a certain element in order for it to be considered concluded. In fact, I would go so far as to argue this story is far from over, ladies and gentlemen. This is simply the end of one chapter in a story that continues to develop. Just because the story did not end the way that my co-counsel wanted it to end does not mean that the story is a bad story. Not in the least. My story also believes that my co-counsel also believes that the Star Wars movie Rogue One is a bad movie because it ends without hope, despite the fact that the movie literally leads into a new movie called A New Hope.
No hope.
That's the point.
Hope. Everybody dies.
Co-counsel, I did not interrupt your prosecution. I would ask you respectfully not to interrupt my defense. Third, I just wanted to do that too. Third, ladies and gentlemen, the third aspect I would say is this. I'm not sure if any of you have been in a situation where you have thought that you were about to die. But ladies and gentlemen, I have. I have been in a situation where I truly believed I was going to die. I was on a fishing boat many years ago. And for those of you who know me, I grew up on the water. I love the water. Lakes, rivers, mountains, streams, gulfs, oceans, it doesn't matter. I'm a water-based person. I love the water. Years ago, I went fishing with my father, my uncle, and my younger brother on a 24-foot Chaparral family cruiser fishing boat out in the Gulf of Mexico. And we got caught in a thunderstorm, ladies and gentlemen, that was creating waves that were 10 to 12 feet in height. Our boat nearly capsized multiple times. We called the Coast Guard of these great United States of America and radio in. United States Coast Guard, we are in trouble. We believe our boat will capsize and we are in the middle of this storm. The Coast Guard said to us, ladies and gentlemen, we are sorry, send us your coordinates so that when this storm is over, we can begin conducting the search party if necessary. I thought I was going to die, ladies and gentlemen, and I will tell you as somebody who grew up on the water and loves boats. I love being on boats. I did not get back on another boat for the better part of a year and a half because I was still afraid of what nearly happened to me out in the Gulf of Mexico. That is the type of mental and physical trauma that a near-death experience can put on you, even if the near-death is only perceived and not a reality. Even if John Moxley said, hey, Kenny Omega tricked us all, this ring was never designed to explode. It didn't matter because to Eddie Kingston, he nearly died. He nearly died. And that trauma doesn't just go away because you're later told that the threat of death was false. There have been consistently scientific studies that have proved the threat of death will emotionally, physically, and mentally change a person. That's what would have happened to Eddie Kingston in a situation where he thought he was laying down his life for John Moxley. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, because the WWE would not have done it that way is not only a flawed argument, it's just a bad one. And I expect better from my co-counsel. Second, ladies and gentlemen, the story not going the way that my co-counsel wanted to go does not mean that you also have to think that it was a bad story. This is a very well-told story. And number three, Eddie Kingston's reaction is exactly the reaction that you would scientifically expect from a person who believed that they had just suffered a near-death experience. My co-counsel expecting him to act a certain way after going through that trauma is completely irresponsible and unacceptable. And again, I expect better out of Lonzo on the prosecuting side. Ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case.
You know, first of all, on behalf of the audience and the people who I see responding, we are so grateful that you survived your trauma in order to make it here to Greenville, South Carolina, and lose this argument.
Thank you, co-counsel, for half of that compliment.
It was well worth you being here for that. In the end, I think anyone out there who is a wrestling fan could have written this better, would have written this better, and would know that all these casual fans that tuned in to this pay-per-view, you just lost them because of the end. This is not setting up a story for a long term if you are trying to bring in a new audience, because that new audience sees, okay, that was it. I'm not coming back to that. In the end, it's dollar signs. And AEW hurt themselves in the pocketbook by this lame ending. And I do not believe for one moment it was intentional. And Tony Khan's going to have to recoup all the money that he lost. Maybe he ends up losing the Jaguars over this. I don't know. I'm not sure. But he could have brought in so many fans who were on the fence and instead turned them back to the old product the one that's tried and true, the one that they know will deliver for the most part, the WWE, and AEW still ends up being the product for the supposed cool kids. And if you take away all the WWE wrestlers out of the AEW, you've only got a couple of people left.
Well, you see this gray hair on my beard right here? You see that? That just showed up from having to listen to the argument that.
And you know what? You can see the gray in Rob's beard if you tune into ESPN Upstate's Facebook page right now to see us as we live stream.
Lonzo is trying to once again convince you, ladies and gentlemen, that because he does not think the story is good, that the story is not good. Don't fall for that trick, ladies and gentlemen. You are the arbiter of what you decide is good and bad. You and you alone, not my co-counsel, not the prosecuting attorney here. You decide if the story was good or bad, not Lonzo for you. And just because someone else would have told it a certain other way doesn't mean the story was poor. The case has been made by both prosecuting attorney Lonzo, defense attorney Rob Brown. We ask for your votes. You can vote by leaving a comment on our Facebook stream, by texting 71307 and giving your thoughts. Let us know who has made the better argument. Let's take a break. When we come back, we get back to sports. I got plenty to talk about. Still want your votes, though. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. This is ESPN Upstate.
You're listening to The Rob Brown Show. Listen on your Amazon or Google smart speaker.
I don't care if not a single person enjoyed that. I enjoyed the hell out of that.
Oh, that was fun. Especially, I almost died out in the ocean in the Coast Guard. Oh, I figured it was.
100% a true story. I legitimately thought I was going to die. I really did.
Well, you know, Rob, I thought I was going to die every day when I walked out of my house growing up. So, I mean, anyway. So what ended up happening? I mean, did you
we made it through. We basically so fortunately for us, the majority of the storm was moving offshore.
Okay.
So since it was moving out, they legit were 10 to 12 foot swells, but they weren't capping, so they were rounded off at the top, which was good. Still terrifying to go up a 12-foot hill and then just have the boat fall 12 feet down. But they weren't capping, which is probably what saved us legitimately. So we were able to point the nose of the boat due north and just ride up over the waves and not come down the back end hard enough that we crashed down and cracked the hull, which was a real threat as well. But Florida thunderstorms are frequent, but they're not real big. So it wasn't the biggest thunderstorm in the area, and we were able to just kind of keep pushing north until we got through it. And we radioed into the Coast Guard, and they basically said, "All right, congratulations, have a nice day." And that was it.
See, I've been on boats on rivers and been on sailboats and things, but I've never been on one on the ocean. So I've only seen, on TV and movies.
Yeah, it was a genuinely terrifying experience. It was in my entire life the most scared, and I was probably 13 or so when this happened. So we had my dad driving the boat. My uncle was basically holding on to the windshield right in the middle with diving goggles, wiping them off, trying to keep us compass pointed due north. The little brother and I were a combination of holding on through 12-foot drops down to nothing and trying to strap down spears and hooks and fishing lines and whatnot so that we didn't, instead of getting tipped over and dying, get speared through the heart by a fish gaff.
Yeah, you don't want that. I think probably what makes it even more frightening is the fact that even as a teenager, you expect the adults to have it, and if you see fear in their eyes, that probably makes it a whole lot worse.
And I think that's probably a chunk because it was in the 13 years I had been alive at that point. I think it was the first time I had ever seen my father afraid, And when you're that young, your dad is not afraid of a damn thing in the world. To me, like I said, I was very lucky to have a very, very, very good relationship with my dad. Dude was not afraid of anything. And so to see him white-knuckled with his eyes wide open, clearly terrified of what we were going through, that exponentially increases the fear that a kid has.
One minute. $30 seconds.
All right.
Just making sure. Welcome back to the Rob Brown Show. Rob, do we still have you?
Yes, we
Okay.
do. I just
All right.
didn't hear the liner, so I didn't know what was happening. It's all good. It's live production, baby. It's what we do. The Rob Brown Show. Back on your radio. That seductive voice is Lonzo. I am Rob Brown, 844-GSP. ESPN's the number, 844-477-3776. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we are, as far as sports are concerned, not out of the woods yet. Ohio State University, the Ohio State University, has paused all football-related activities and closed its athletics administrative offices for 1 week after an increase in positive tests for the coronavirus, according to the university in a press release earlier today. The Buckeyes said the decision to pause football activities and close the Woody Hayes Athletic Center offices was made jointly by Athletics Director Gene Smith and head team physician Dr. Jim Borchers, quote, out of an abundance of caution and with the health, safety, and well-being of the student athletes, coaches, football, and facility support staff as the highest priority. The decision was made after a round of PCR testing on Monday. Smith said in a statement, quote, our decisions on the welfare of our student athletes, staff members, and those coming to our campus and our determination as to when we will reopen and resume activities will continue to be guided by our medical staff. We have been successful in safely hosting nearly 100 athletic events on campus this year with limited disruptions, but this pandemic is not over. We will continue to stress the safety measures of wearing masks, consistent and thorough hand washing, and physical distancing, and we will remain vigilant in those areas. The Buckeyes are scheduled to start spring practice coming up here in just about 10 days from now. So, we've spent the week, Lonzo, talking about the fact that Alabama, full stadiums in the fall, they've said. Clemson, full stadiums in the fall, they've said. The governor of California, limited numbers, but fans in attendance for opening day in Major League Baseball. We've got conferences around the country that are starting to let fans back into sporting events, etc., as we continue to work towards the hopeful resumption of some level of normalcy in sports. But this Ohio State reminder, and obviously, Zoe, as a Buckeye, this one, I assume, hits relatively close to home for you. This is just a reminder that, unfortunately, we still have a long ways to go before we get back to normal, which is why I said on yesterday's show, When I hear Bama and Clemson and Gavin Newsom come out and say, we are working on and planning on having fans back in full force in the fall, I said what I said, which is I am cautiously optimistic, with the emphasis placed on the word cautiously and not on the word optimistic. Here we have a case that is throwing a wrench into the system of a college football program getting ready to gear up for their big-time spring practice, though, and a shutdown. Cautiously optimistic. We still need to keep handling things the right way, if for no other reason, #Fix to Sports, so that we can all go to football games this season in the fall and get that experience under our belt.
It is a shame that it's happened, but yeah, I mean, we're not entirely out of the woods with this virus, with this pandemic. So, I mean, they have to err on the side of caution. Good for them for shutting everything down, and we're still going to have some incidents of this. Will the vaccine take care of it all? I don't know if it will or not. Will all the measures that they're taking completely eliminate this thing? Probably not. So even with full stadiums and everyone trying to get back to some semblance of normalcy, we're still going to have times where you have to take a step back. And that's what they're doing here, and erring on the side of caution. And one thing about it, though, it's not new territory anymore. It's unfortunate, but it's not new territory anymore. These things have happened throughout the last year. And so now we know how to handle it. They know how to handle it. And they know how to get things back under control and get back to where they need to be afterwards. But it's not like it was last year around this time, when there was a lot of panic and wondering, how does a school handle something like this? Now precedence has been set. People know what to do. And so we just have to move forward cautiously and deal with the fact that you're going to have to shut down every once in a while.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. Cautiously optimistic. Still got to handle things the right way. Still have to understand that if there is a breakout, like it or not, if there's a breakout, things will have to shut down for periods of time at a time. But the possibility for us to get back to normal is there on the table. Cautiously optimistic. 844-GSP ESPN. Text us 71307. Start your text with ESPN. Quick break. We'll come back here in just a second. Got one or two more quick stories to run through for you. Then we'll hit Twitter trending topics and call it a day. I'm Rob. He's up. This is the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate.
You're listening to The Rob Brown Show. Listen on your phone everywhere on the radio.com app. Download the app and make ESPN Upstate.
I hate to admit it, Zoe, I think you have slightly edged me out on our case here. I'm both shocked, disturbed by the reaction of our listening audience. I find it unfathomable that my argument did not work. But thus is the legal system in the United States. Bum, bum.
It was a very good argument, and you'll get them next time.
Dun, 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 dun. Bum, 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 bum. At least I got the magic song out of my head. Now I have
1 minute.
songs of Law and Order stuck.
Yes, you did.
Bum, 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 bum.
But which Law and Order is it? There's like 20 of them.
I have legit, and this is a true story, not for nothing more than your own entertainment. I have never watched an episode of any Law and Order series. Not a one.
My wife is really into all those kind of dramas, so I've seen bits and pieces of them.
Mm-hmm.
I usually,
full episode?
not that I recall. I'm just, as I talked about before, when I watch TV and other things, other than sports, I want to see stuff that can't happen. Because all those are rooted in reality and taken out of headlines. So, all right, come back.
Insurance company and affiliates. Real unfiltered sports talk brewed locally.
Oh my God, a hipster! Bring him a microbrew, quick!
This is the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate.
The Rob Brown Show rolls on. This is ESPN Upstate. Rob Alonzo with you here on a beautiful Upstate Saturday afternoon. 844-477-3776, 844-GSP, ESPN. If you missed it early, Carolina Panthers have placed their franchise tag on offensive tackle Taylor Moton. The Panthers have decided to lock him down with the tag. The tackle franchise number expected to be between $13.5 and $14 million in 2021. It also gives the Panthers and Moton time to continue to negotiate a long-term deal. Matt Rule said late season, quote, he's an excellent player. He's an excellent professional. He's an even better person. When we talk about the brand, he's all of that. The Panthers have used the franchise tag since they've been a team back in 95, 8 times with mixed success. Gross, Peppers, Khalil, and Short have all been tagged. So were punter Todd Sauerbrunn, defensive end Greg Hardy, and cornerback Josh Norman. Those 3 times. It did not go very well for the Panthers, but this one, high hopes that this deal is going to get worked out. He had, from Pro Football Focus, the 3rd highest ranked grade amongst qualifying right tackles in 2020, also played 100% of the offensive snaps for the Carolina Panthers. And so if there is one thing, I mean, look, we can talk about pass efficiency. We can talk about the fact that the dude allowed like 3 quarterback pressures on every 40 dropbacks, which is an incredible number. We can talk about the fact that I think he was only penalized like 4 times all year last year. But the single most impressive number for an offensive lineman at the NFL, the best capability is your ability. The fact that this dude was on the floor for 100% of the snaps of the Panthers offense last year, that in and of itself, just that level of consistency, Lonzo, has earned him a big-time contract when the time comes to negotiate it, I think.
Oh, absolutely, especially at that position. I mean, as important as linemen are, the fact that he was there the entire time. How many times do you hear that about any player at any position? You don't. And because they need that kind of consistency out of the rest of the line, then the team would be really, really good.
100%, 100%.
Although I guess you could show up for every play and just really be bad, but you're there.
As an offensive tackle, no, you can't, because if you show up and you just be bad as a wide receiver, okay, you don't catch but 1 or 2 balls in a game. You show up as the right tackle and you're bad, your quarterback gets murdered, and it turns out at the NFL level, that's kind of frowned upon for the most part. So that the fact that, because it's twofold, him playing 100%, not only is he out there at 100% and performing, but it also means there was no point where there was a backup tackle who made an argument to get a tryout even, right? There was never even a point where they went, all right, you got some penalties, you allowed some pressures, we're going to bring in this free agent, offensive tackle and give him a shot to see if he maybe fits in the system. Your job never even got threatened. Never even got threatened. If that's not worth the franchise tag where you work out a long-term deal, I don't know what is. Dak Prescott, 4 years, $160 million plus to stay on as the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Not really a shock to me, Lonzo. I mean, Dak Prescott is a guy that there's a lot of folks that think he's got the potential to be a top-tier quarterback. There's a lot of folks that think he don't. But there's a lot of folks, I would say the vast, overwhelming majority fall into what is a near consensus of between the contract issues and the extensive injuries, Dak really hasn't gotten a chance. He really hasn't gotten to go a full season top tier and prove that he is or is not the guy. It's a flyer for 4 years at $160 million on a guy that may or may not be the job. But here's what I will say. When Dak Prescott has been on the field for the Dallas Cowboys the last couple of years, they have won far more frequently than they have lost. When he went down last year, they lost a bunch. It's a lot of money, but Zoe, welcome to the quarterback era in the NFL. It is worth taking a flyer on a guy who might be the guy than missing out and getting us stuck with a guy who is not, when having a guy that is not means that your team will not make the playoffs.
You know, I'm not surprised they got it done, but why did it take so long? I mean, what was Jerry Jones waiting on? Was it, we haven't heard a whole lot about negotiations as of late. Was it a matter of just finding out how he's recovering from the injury? I guess that probably could factor into it. But Jerry Jones has never acted like he was going to go anywhere else other than sign Dak. So it's really not a surprise. Now we got to find out, as you said, when he stays healthy, he's pretty good. But can he stay healthy?
And that is, I think that was part of it. I think the money. I think the money was a question, right? JJ didn't want to come off $160 for 4 years for a guy that has been injured. He didn't want to come off that much money. JJ didn't make that money by being liberal with the way that he spends it, right? Yeah, you ever read a book by or talked to somebody who is a bona fide millionaire or billionaire? You know what the one thing they all have in common is? With the rare exception, they're cheap. They're cheap. They are. They're cheap. With rare exception, if you see somebody who's got all the flash, one of two things. Either A, they're not really a millionaire and they're putting on a show, or B, they ain't going to be a millionaire for much longer. Most of the people that make it to JJ status make it there because they're cheap. I've told this story before. I drank with JJ one night. I drank with Jerry Jones at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, Alabama, at a little bar called Veets. Veets. You can look it up. It's a cool little music bar. Jerry Jones, you know what JJ bought for drinks? He'd offer to buy you a drink if he felt like talking with you had some business benefit to it. You know what JJ would offer to buy you from a bar that had every type of liquor and expensive wine under the sun? He didn't ask you what you wanted. He just bought it for you. You know what it was, Zoe? He bought you a Jack and Diet that was on special at the bar. It's a billionaire.
So you can either say he's cheap or he's sizing you up and saying, yeah, this is probably what you drink.
No, he was buying it for everybody.
Okay,
He was buying it for everybody. And I get it. That's a thought I'd have gone with too. But I was there. There was a bunch of media folks there. It was a media and Senior Bowl administration / VIP party. All right. Sean Payton was there. Roman Harper was there. Mickey Loomis, the GM of the Saints, was there. JJ was there. Steven, his son, was there. A bunch of players were there. JJ was buying drinks for folks. He was buying the $2 Jack and Diets that were on sale for the party. JJ didn't get where JJ got in the old wallet department because he's, spending big money. So I guarantee you a good chunk of that was just the negotiation. Dak values himself as a top 5 quarterback in the league and wants to be paid that way. JJ wants to pay him somewhere in the 10th to 15th range for a guy who's been banged up. Took a while to get to that number, especially coming off the injury he was coming off of. Real quick bit of news and notes for the University of South Carolina. They've had questions about the quarterback position ever since Gunnar Stockton decommitted back in mid-January and then ended up committing to Georgia. There were 2 other quarterbacks for the next recruiting class, the 2022 class, that were thrown out there. Tanner Bailey of Gordo, Alabama, and Drew Allar of Medina, Ohio, were both on the Gamecocks radar. Both of them have since committed. Bailey ended up committing to Oregon. Allar ended up committing to Penn State. So there were big questions about, all right, 2022 under Shane Beamer, who's the guy? Well, Tevin Carter is a 6'3", 205-pound quarterback, 3-star prospect, according to the 24/7 composite, and the number 22 overall pro-style quarterback nationally. The former Gamecock staff offered Carter in February of 2018. He since camped with the Gamecocks. He said that he has been in communication with new quarterbacks coach Marcus Satterfield since the new staff was put into place. In that quote, he just kept saying they're going to continue to get to know me, and they've been watching my film. They really talk about my arm strength and how quick I read the defenses and my playmaking ability, end quote. Now, just to put it in context, Carter has received offers from Arkansas, Florida State, Auburn, LSU, Michigan, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Baylor, Maryland, Syracuse, ULM, Marshall, and Ole Miss, as well as West Virginia. He said he is going to West Virginia for a summer camp this year if they are allowed, but that he will also be heading to Columbia. Carter said, quote, I'm going to do the same thing with South Carolina. I'm going to go to their camp this summer so their staff can see me throw live too, end quote. Carter was asked who his favorite is. He said, I don't have one right now. He said, quote, I'm looking for a school that's going to best prepare me for the league, a school that's going to have me ready for the world after college. I'm talking about good education, and that's going to put me in good job placement after college, end quote. 3-star commit. I mean, he's not exactly burning it up, but you heard the list of schools that the guy's got an offer from. It is no slouch list of schools, and he seems to have a relatively good head on his shoulders, though. It's good news, not just that Shane Beamer's staff is getting to a point where they're starting to get features and players in front of them, but they're able to talk some of the higher sought-after players that were offered by Muschamp staff into sticking around as a potential scholarship player down the road. I got to tell you, Zoe, I was not high. I was not high on where the turnover was going to be. I wasn't a huge fan of the hiring Beamer up front, but the guy is winning me over the more I hear new players talking about him. I got to tell you the truth.
Yeah, all that's really cool, but still, will it lead to wins on the field? And I hope it will. Everything is positive now. Will it be come fall when we see who is on the field and how they play? And the 3-star thing, that's weird, isn't it? That so many other schools have offered this kid. Wonder what it is. Does he have problems off field or something that caused him to be only a 3-star? It's just, as you pointed out, it's unusual to have that many offers from bigger schools and being only a 3-star.
Yeah, top tier schools. I like this out of Shane Beamer's staff. All right, real quick. On the text line at ESPN, 2 words for you about wrestling. Quote, it's fake, end quote. Yes, we also break down movies and television and songs.
Thank you, show for men. Yeah. Getting in on the text line. We appreciate that.
That's right. At ESPN, Rob is right. This is P1 Cleanup. Appreciate that text. So there's a vote for me, although I told Zoe during the break. Based on the votes between the votes in the stream, the votes on the text, and on Facebook, he is barely edging me out in the argument. Barely edging me out. At ESPN, can't wait for that show for men so we can talk about the Bachelorette instead of wrestling. Yes, the truly real, definitely unscripted, definitely not planned out Bachelorette talk coming up next.
I have to defend Diesel. There's no way Diesel watches that show.
No, not at all.
There's absolutely no way. I think under force of I don't know.
I don't think Diesel
bodily harm. Yeah.
If Diesel's significant other said, sit down and watch the show, I still don't think he'd do it.
Yeah, I don't think he would either. And so I'm going to defend him there.
All right, let's take a break. We come back. We talk about what you're talking about. Zoe tells me what's trending on Twitter. I give you 35 to 45 seconds about what I know about it. That is up next to wrap up the Tuesday edition of the Rob Brown Show right here on ESPN Upstate.
You're listening to the Rob Brown Show. Listen on your Amazon or Google smart speaker. Just say play ESPN Upstate.
I finally cleaned up the 700 some odd emails that have been floating through my inbox for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, I get this thing every once in a while that says your mailbox is almost full.
Yeah.
And I keep trying to work on it. But once you get behind for like a decade, it's really hard to catch up. And I wish there was, and there may be like a erase all function.
Right.
But even if there was, I couldn't. I don't think I can make myself do that because I would lose something valuable. So
that's the worst part is you have to look at every email individually to make sure you don't delete something critical that you haven't seen in a year.
Because I go through and delete every day the stuff that I get during that day. But if it's in there, then I saved it for a reason. And
right.
And maybe that reason maybe I only needed it for a week, but I'll get to it eventually. Or do like I did last time and talk them into expanding the size of my mailbox. It's kind of cheating, I guess. By the way. And if you see anything else as per your earlier email, feel free to go ahead and send it to me.
Yes, I will. Yeah.
Because there were a few things that I have no problem with getting rid of.
Yeah.
And I heard right away something I could use. But keep in mind, we have to squeeze so much into that small space.
Yeah.
1 minute. So you know what AEW is going to do. They're going to, whether it was intentional or not, now it's going to be intentional. And I think that John Moxley saved them. And by saying what he said, and now they can just swerve that story that way. If it was intentional, I think it was a bad move on their part. Because, like I said, losing some fringe people that they may have been able to retain.
Because look, you could agree with me that it's a great way to keep telling that story, but still think, hey man, look, you promised us a bomb and you gave us a sparkler. Like that's just.
But I still think it's Moxley saved it.
I completely agree.
And you're a guy is clearly thinking after being bloodied through an entire thing. Oh.
Dispensing real, unfiltered sports talk every weekday noon to 3. This is the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate. And now, the Rob Brown Show presents Twitter Trending Topics.
All right, it is time for Twitter Trending Topics, where I will find what's trending on Twitter and will tell Rob about it, and he will regale us all with his vast knowledge and knowing exactly what it is. He's never wrong. Ever wrong. All right, so the first thing trending is Cyborg.
I am wrong because I do not know why Cyborg is trending. I'm all down for pretty much anything that is trending. I'm going.
Oh, you're gonna love this.
I'm gonna guess off the top of my head that as we continue to move towards the debut of the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, that it might have something to do with that. But I got nothing else outside of that guess.
This is on par with the AEW mistake. All right, so some people tuned in to watch the new Tom and Jerry movie, which has been released on HBO Max, and instead they got a bunch of never-before-seen movie parts of Cyborg. So it wasn't supposed to be on there yet, and somehow they screwed up, and so a bunch of stuff from Cyborg from Justice League has been released accidentally.
I saw that there were some people that went to HBO Max to go watch Tom and Jerry, and they got the full movie. Like they got the full Snyder cut. Yeah, like people have already seen it now. Nobody seems to have given a whole lot of details. I'm sure most of those people are just whatever. But because let's be real, unless you're me or you or the handful of people in our limited demo, there's probably not a ton of people that are going to go, I really want to watch the Tom and Jerry movie. Oh, look at Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League. I'm just as entertained by that. Those two groups are pretty far apart with a couple of bleedovers like you and I. So I'm not really shocked there's not a lot of people talking about it.
And I am a little upset that I didn't know, because I would have, I was meaning to watch Tom and Jerry. And if I watched Tom and Jerry and that happened, I would be like, okay, I'm sure it's going to cut off at some point. And then 4 hours later, we'd find out that I was wrong.
Yep.
All right, the next thing that is trending is John Gruden.
Chucky's trending today. And again, no idea why. I do know that there have been some criticisms of John Gruden, because if you've noticed, even though the Raiders have been connected to some high-profile potential free agents, trade bait, etc., they haven't really made any moves. And Chucky's kind of taken some heat because he hasn't really done anything in the offseason to improve the Raiders recently. So, I saw somebody ask a question earlier, is that just because John Gruden is not afraid of being fired because of that ridiculous contract the Raiders signed him to? And I think the answer to that is, yeah, probably.
All right, so Raiders fans, and you're probably right, the Raiders fans are upset because Trent Brown is being sent to the Patriots.
Yeah, back to the Patriots, that's right. That's right.
And some people are really upset with that
for
because
not all that much either.
Yeah.
Like, you're not getting a ton back for a pretty good player. Here, this
right,
came up looking at John Gruden and Mike Mayock's first offseason together. Antonio Brown cut, Tyrell Williams cut, Trent Brown traded, LaMarcus Joyner cut, Vontaze Burfict suspended midseason, Brandon Marshall cut, Isaiah Crowell never paid, and that's the class. Wow, that's bad. That's bad.
They were the only AFC West team to beat the Chiefs last year, though. So they got that going
the rest
for
of the season.
Yeah, well, there's that.
They also beat the Saints, remember.
They did.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there were moments where they looked like they might end up doing something, but it didn't come to fruition. All right, time enough for one more Joshua Tree.
I don't know why Joshua Tree is trending, so I'm just going to very simply tell you that Joshua Tree is probably, I would argue, the last really good album of U2. They've had some decent albums since Joshua Tree, but for the most part, they stopped letting Edge be Edge. That's the guitarist, not the wrestler. They just stopped letting him be him, and U2 has suffered the last decade or so because of it, in my opinion.
Well, apologies for the trending topics, but they're just not good today. They're not. And the reason why Joshua Tree is trending, 34 years ago today it was released. Wow. So it is that old.
Quick text. You asked for our response on the discussion of the sport of wrestling. It requires more than one. The WWE is short for we will endure watching, or worst to worster entertainment, or woeful entertainment, or what a wasted evening, or, well, we endured. You know it's a great country when not only can people pay a lot of money in deception, radio stations convince sponsors to pay good money to bore us with it. That's from the Tennessee Tiger. We're trying to hold wrestling accountable and get you a better product. That's what.
It's all right though. That show for men's coming up, so you're covered there.
Not
you
a
just stick
bit of
with
wrestling for the next 4 hours, except when they do talk about it. That's next. Mark Ryan and Diesel just around the corner. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow. For Zoe, I'm Rob. This is the Rob Brown Show on ESPN